All right. Well, welcome to a very special episode of Twin Peaks Thought of the Day for Wednesday, May 17th, 2017. I am here once again with Eric. How's it going?
It's going great. Glad to see you,
So,
man.
you too. Now, this week has been a very emotional ride for me. Every day that goes by is one day closer to watching a new episode of Twin Peaks. And I've gotten more and more amped, more and more excited. Every new teaser that comes out um, just quenching my thirst even more. It's unbelievable.
It's really hard. It's hard to fathom. And again, you were there. I mean, you saw it when it originally aired. So I mean, for you, I can't even imagine. I mean, for me, I feel at a loss for words sometimes to think when I saw that final frame of the series, and I was just kind of like, I'm never gonna know. Like that's the end. And again, Fire Walk with Me has something we talked about this the other time where it kind of creates a loop. But that I frankly think that's something I've just been telling myself to make to feel better about it.
It does. It does. But we wanted the movie to maybe move a little more forward than it
Right.
does. But no. I'm at a loss for words, which is kind of funny considering I do a video podcast on this subject matter. But I mean, just the idea that you know, just we're gonna be back in this world with these characters again. It is just is an incredible feeling, and I can't believe that I'm alive and this is actually happening because a few years ago this was just a rumor that was going around the internet as something that was never going to happen. But go ahead and dream, but it's just never going to happen. And here we are.
I've actually thought about that. There are people who were probably big Twin Peaks fans who died, in the last 27 years, and
Right.
and they don't get to experience it. And it just seems like an odd thing, but I've thought that. It's like we're fortunate for a number of reasons. So yeah, I'm even debating wearing a black suit on Sunday when I watch it. Maybe if I do, I'll take a picture and I'll show everybody. But
You better not be eating pie and drinking coffee during this
I
thing.
may have a cup of coffee. I don't know whether I'll eat pie. I'm not a big pie fan, but I might have a cup of coffee. Well, because again, it's going to be 4 episodes and it's going to be late, so the coffee may be more for logistical purposes
Yeah,
than you know.
exactly. And I have to be at work the next day, and I'm planning to be up almost till 3 or 4 in the morning
Jeez, yeah.
because by the time the fourth episode airs, it's going to be well after midnight because it's going to drop around 11 o'clock our time. So by the time we do another 2 hours, it's going to be 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
And then if I do any videos right afterwards,
Oh
yeah,
God.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
but
Definitely looking forward to an exciting weekend up ahead. Hope everybody just really enjoys the specialness of this moment. Like it's going to be great.
well, that's what Joel and I were talking about last night. Is this is we are embarking on the last few moments of, um, before the new Twin Peaks. I mean, this is the only time we're ever going to feel this anticipation. After Sunday, we're going to know more or less the tone and the direction, at least we're heading for, a few episodes at least.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing anything. I mean, even as simple as will it have the opening credits?
Mhm.
Will we do the same thing? I am hoping. Like again, I don't at this point I feel like more than any other show that I've ever kind of been involved with, I don't know what expectations I have to put on this. I know I want to find out what happened to Cooper. That might be my only expectation from this. But there are things that I just think would be nice and it'd be good to have. And I just really want that opening credit sequence again, but with updated imagery. Because since I lived in Snoqualmie, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool now. It'd be nice to see updated imagery. It's like, oh yeah, that looks more like how I know it.
Yeah, but when you have emotional weeks like this,
Hmm.
you're going to have peaks and you're going to have valleys. You're going to
Hmm.
have ups and you're going to have downs. And this week so far has just been incredible highs. And I'm sure I will get there again.
Uh-oh.
But today, it's Wednesday. People call it hump day.
Yeah.
Today, I hit the valley.
Uh-oh.
Today, I I came very close, Eric, very close. Now, of course, this is going to change, but just today, I felt like, you know what? Maybe I'm good. Maybe I'm good with just the Twin Peaks that I've had for the last 27 years. And maybe I don't want to dip my toe in this new water, no matter how excited I am. Because a lot of things happened today. A lot of words, a lot of mistruths, a lot of revisionist history that makes me shake my head and say, if they don't care, then maybe I shouldn't either.
Heresy.
Now, here's the thing. I'm going to get to comments in the chat eventually, but I have to just air out all this. So you're going to get a Cameron rant. But that's why I have Eric here. He's got to balance me out a little bit at least. He's got to pull me out of the Black Lodge and make and make me see the happiness that's in front of us.
I can only do it with pure love. So fortunately, I have some.
Exactly. I can't believe the things that I have seen today. There are some things in life, Eric, that you can't unsee or unhear. And today was one of those days. Now, there's a variety of things that were said, but it's hard to know even where to start because I just have so many thoughts and feelings going on. But I will say this. This conversation tonight that Eric and I are going to have, in the words of John Schnepp over at Collider Video, this is probably going to be the sweatiest Twin Peaks conversation. The most geekiest Twin Peaks conversation. So if you want to hear, us just talk about the show and how excited we are and all that, watch yesterday's episode. Tonight's episode is for the quote unquote real talk.
We're gonna get our hands dirty.
This is the episode where I'm gonna roll up my sleeves, even though I have short sleeves on, and it's time to talk about some ugly truths out there. And this will probably all be gone tomorrow, but I have to ride this emotional journey the way it goes. And tonight, it's time to get serious. So,
all right, hit me.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start light because I have to. I can't just go straight for the jugular. All right. I don't want this podcast to be Firewalk with Me. I want it to be a little bit more free flowing. First thing is I didn't get to see it, but apparently Jim Belushi was on Good Morning America today.
I saw it. Yeah.
And he said something about a party. And the cast apparently were giving him looks like "shut up." Is this true, or what happened?
I don't know that I would. So essentially, it was Kyle MacLachlan, Kimmy Robertson, Dana Ashbrook, and Jim Belushi on Good Morning America, and they were giving sort of the same interview that they've been giving now for weeks, where they don't really say all that much. And Kyle, it's funny, I've seen several Kyle interviews now, and he's kind of starting to say exactly the same things in interview to interview. And they started talking about like working with David Lynch, and Jim Belushi, he just kind of says, he's like, well, there's like a party. And they did kind of glance at him, but they kind of did it more in a joking fashion. He was kind of like, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say, but he's like, there's just a party. And he just sort of tells a story. It was actually a very funny story about how in this party, he's Jim Belushi, and so he ad-libbed a line. Like, I don't know, he felt a line and he said it. And the scene finished, and at the end of it, David Lynch goes, "Mr. Belushi, I have to bring you to the principal's office." Again, I just thought it was a really funny. Yeah, right. I didn't interpret anything like, "Oh my God, shut up." It was a convivial kind of atmosphere.
Because that is what was messaged to me. Several people said, "Did you see Good Morning America?" Jim Belushi threw out some spoilers, and the cast was giving him looks to shut his mouth. And I'm like, really? I really. First of all, the cast only had the scenes they were in.
Right.
right? So he's not really revealing anything about, you know, the mysteries of the Black Lodge.
Yeah. I mean, well, listen, I would invite the viewers, I invite anybody, go take a look at the clip. It, to me, it didn't strike me as anything but, you know, Belushi mentioning a situation. And again, to me, saying that there is a party, a celebration of some sort at some point, that doesn't tell me anything. We don't even know who the hell Jim Belushi's going to be in this thing. Like, I don't.
Right.
It. You know, he was setting the scene. He was kind of giving a fun anecdote. And I'll be honest, since I've been like eating up all these interviews, I was glad to get some information that wasn't just the same 10 lines that have been repeated again and again and again.
In fact, I don't even know why any of these actors are doing interviews.
Yeah.
Because they can't say anything. Why don't we wait until the show comes out where you can talk about the hour of television we saw?
Right. Right. And in fact, I heard a rumor today kind of on that point that some members of the cast, like this was the first interview I'd even seen Dana Ashbrook in, with the exception being the like the EW piece. But apparently some members of the cast aren't even allowed to do anything until after the show in September, which I don't know whether that's true or not, but it was something I read.
Well, Mark Frost isn't allowed to publish his new book until after the show's over. So
Right. Well, and again, I think that probably makes sense, because if it's what we think it's going to be, it's going to actually be what happened over 25 years or details or something.
Right.
But I'm with you. Like, I almost wish they weren't doing any press, or if they were, you know, the interviewers were better. Because again, I don't blame the cast. I mean, they signed non-disclosure agreements. You know, someone's going to like come yank their chain if they give something up. So, you know, the interviewers need to be a little more creative with their questions, I think.
Let's be honest here. The interviewers for Twin Peaks, I don't care if it's 1990, 1991, or 2017.
Yeah.
They're awful.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they are generally awful.
Well, because they don't know the show. Like, Jimmy Fallon makes it seem like he's some kind of fan, but I mean, I don't know, maybe.
Oh my God, Eric,
nobody's asking.
Eric. Here's the thing. I mean, this. Oh my God, where is this conversation is going to get crazy, guys? I'm not kidding you. Maybe not about this topic, but trust me, where we're going. Oh my Lord. The thing is, though, is that, you know, all of these sites, these geek nerd sites. I don't care which one you want to talk about. They act like they're knowledgeable about everything geek and nerdy. And I don't understand it. It's like, I understand they want the clicks, but why don't they just pick like 3 or 4 shows, 3 or 4 types of movies, Marvel, DC, whatever, and concentrate on that? I mean, do we have to be experts on Veronica Mars, Dexter, Game of Thrones, Twin Peaks? I mean, you know, it goes on and on and on.
Yeah. And
not every site should feel like they have to be, you know, just specialists in every show.
Yeah. Well,
because they're listen, a lot of these channels have never talked about Twin Peaks before in their life. And now when you YouTube Twin Peaks over the last week, it's just like a flood of, because all they want, they're jumping on the bandwagon.
Well, so if I'm to try and pull it to the brighter side, maybe just my theory might be that typically they wouldn't have just talked about it. But like we've talked about and like we've seen, Twin Peaks had such a great influence over all the TV you see today, even movies, David Lynch's influence on movies too, that these channels that may not have traditionally talked about Twin Peaks, the people there are still aware of it in some sense. And there were fans, but they never really had an opportunity to like seed it into the editorial content. Maybe I'm just trying to see the bright side. But I do admit, especially because I've been doing these shows with you and we get really into the meat of it and we have good conversations, I am sort of miffed that, you know, you kind of had an opinion about the EW video about some of the people that were like giving their interviews and explaining Twin Peaks to us. I was just kind of like, shut up. Who are you?
Who, me?
Not you, them.
Oh, okay.
EW people, like, who are you? Like, you're gonna tell me about Twin Peaks? Like, just from your explanation, I'm not sure you understand Twin Peaks. There is an element of that I get. I mean, we've been talking about Twin Peaks for years. I feel like we know what we're talking about in some sense, but
right. And in fact, listen, new viewers or lovely and welcome. And I love, people who discovered Twin Peaks, however you discovered it, whether it be the DVDs and Blu-rays, Netflix, however you discover it, bootleg, I don't care, right? You discovered it, awesome. You're more than welcome here.
Yeah.
But I've always maintained, and I'm not trying to sound elitist in any way, shape, or form, but I've always maintained that this was the Twin Peaks podcast for people who were Generation 1 fans. Because that's where I'm coming from. I saw the show from the very beginning. So, I had someone that wrote me today and they said, well, what's really interesting about your show is because you're coming at it from a perspective that we don't normally hear from, because all we've been getting is the same stories, the revisionist history, and not what really happened. And that's the one thing that drove me nuts about those Showtime Twin Peaks, the Phenomenon teasers or whatever they sent out, because it was completely retooled to not tell the real story. It was basically, let's just shape it so we can create these like 3-5 minute little videos and everyone will be happy. And here we go. But I'm looking at it from the perspective as like, that's not at all what happened. Why don't we talk about the truth? And in this day and age of Donald Trump, it seems like the truth does not matter anymore. And it makes me so sad. All right, so let's move on to topic number 1. I can't believe I have to talk about this again, but I have to bring this up. So people are, all week long, people have been throwing this out to me. And today, Lynch, listen, I love David Lynch. He was the first, like, I mean, I like a lot of filmmakers, but he was the first filmmaker I think I generally like fell in love with in terms of his style and even the meat of his films. I just loved everything about him. But facts are facts, and we need to discuss some of these. But okay, so it's pretty clear now. Who knows? Because we haven't seen it yet, but it seems pretty obvious that friend of the show, Michael J. Anderson, will not be in this new season. Would you be a betting man and say that's probably not happening?
I think it is of the things David Lynch actually has said about the new season. I think he actually just confirmed that, but I didn't think he was going to be in it either.
Right. Well, okay, so here's the thing. So a lot of people have been messaging me and kind of saying, hey, it makes sense that Michael J. Anderson isn't in this new show because what he says in the final episode, which is when he tells Cooper, when you see me again, it won't be me.
Right.
I've always laughed at that as being the reason that he's not in this new show.
Yeah.
Because he's referring to the doppelganger of the little man.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, in Fire Walk with Me and in The Missing Pieces, all of those scenes with Cooper in the Black Lodge or the waiting room, whatever you want to call it, with the little man, take place after the series.
Yeah.
And it's
or
still,
in another world of timelessness, but in effect, yeah. I mean, yeah, right.
It's post him being stuck in the lodge.
Right.
It's still the little man.
Yeah.
Right. So that can't be true. Right. But Lynch today was asked about this, and he said, well, if you want to think of it that way, well, okay. Which other people messaged me and said, see, that's what it means. That's what it means. That's like, no, that's not what he's saying. He's just saying, hey, he's not in this. If you want to look at it that way, fine. But I didn't see it as a confirmation as that's the reason that Michael J. Anderson is in this. Is it in this?
His direct response was something more like, that may actually be true. Basically just, essentially confirming he's not in it. But I don't know that if you read the quote, Lynch is responding more to the question of, is Michael J. Anderson in this than, what does the little man actually mean, So, yeah, right. I'm with you on that.
And I don't think there is, with Lynch, a lot of things are open to interpretation. I don't think this is one of them. I think it's pretty clear what it means. Right. It was referring to the doppelganger. Now,
perfectly clear.
Now, in Fire Walk with Me, The giant isn't in it. Nor do they ever talk about the giant. They don't even mention it.
Right.
So maybe we just won't even get the little man even mentioned. Or maybe the role has been recast. I mean, we don't know. But I can't see, just some other person just walking up and going like, hey, everybody, I'm the arm. I'm the, when I said, when you see me again, it won't be me. That I'm now that person. I can't see Lynch doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I could just see there being a different actor. It's not, again, we've already seen it's not unprecedented to recast a role. And there's already been the theories out there about some of the other, new names in the cast that they actually are playing recast versions of existing characters. There's been the theory that, oh God, his name's escaping me, but Sheriff Truman's brother,
Robert Forster.
That Robert Forster will be playing, Harry Truman's brother. But I think it's one of the first rumors I heard about it, and I guess it's sort of a spoiler if it turns out to be true, is that no, he was playing Harry Truman. It's just they recast him. And then, again, this all goes back to Lynch originally wanted Forster for the part. I don't know that that's true, but I got to be honest. I feel like the new show would be hurt by the absence of Harry Truman's character. And if we had to recast it, gosh, I think you could do a lot worse than Robert Forster. But anyway, I'm going down a road here. But if the man from another place is someone else, okay. But yeah, it's not like Lynch confirmed some theory about that's what that line means. I think it's pretty clear in the episode what he's saying. Because even the Maddie character, watch out for my cousin, right. There's a number of things that happen in that episode, but are pertaining to the events that are about to happen, not some philosophical comment about the future,
Right, exactly. And we have a special guest showing up here. Are you live?
Hey, I'm live.
All right, cool. You guys all know Joe. He's here. He's giving us a thumbs up. Joe, you are here on a very special episode of Twin Peaks Thought of the Day. This is going to be the Valley episode compared to all the peaks we've been getting.
Wait a second. I thought Nancy Reagan was going to tell you to just say no. I thought that's what you meant by special episode.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. All right.
This isn't little Dudley going to the bike shop in different strokes. All right.
Okay. All right. I'll roll with it then. That's fine.
Okay. Anyway, so we're going to move on to the next topic here. All right. It's hard to know which one to go into next. All right. Let's talk about something that you have been working on for a while, Eric. You just published it today, which was awesome that you did. You guys check this out. I'll put this in the show notes after, but Eric wrote a piece today called "I Disagree with David Lynch," and he was working on it a few days before, but it just happened to perfectly coincide with the New York Times article. I want to read what David Lynch said today. Now, I'm sure a number of you are going to agree with him, but you shouldn't. That's all I'm saying. And let me just read this to you. Okay. I had one guy say to me today going, "Oh, I'm so happy that Lynch was able to be forthright and say what was on his mind about it." And I'm like, no, he should be shutting his mouth right now is what he should be doing. But that's just my humble opinion. So, all right, let's see. Where is it? Okay. He says, all right. Now, this is going to segue into a variety of different discussions. So, like I said, this is going to get really Twin Peaks geeky. So, relax.
So hang on.
Yeah. Hold on to your plastic. David Lynch said this about season 2. It got very stupid and goofy in the second season. It got ridiculous, Mr. Lynch said in a phone interview, explaining that his work on Wild at Heart pulled him away from the show after the first season. And Lynch says, I stopped watching Twin Peaks because it got so bad. Now, I don't even know where to start with this. First of all, Eric, I'm going to let you start because I'm about to blow a gasket just reading this. Because even if you think parts of season 2 was goofy and stupid, this is insane. Because they just re-aired the whole series on Showtime.
Yeah.
If Lynch really feels that way, they shouldn't have aired it. Right?
Well,
Especially since Lynch has now come out and said, now I don't know about Mark Frost, but Lynch said the only things that he watched before sitting down to co-write this with Mark Frost was the pilot and Fire Walk with Me. Now, before he did Fire Walk with Me, all he watched was the pilot. So we have two things that he made that completely contradict one another in many, many, many ways. And these are the two works that he felt he only needed to watch before writing Twin Peaks. Now, let's start with Eric. Let's start with your article and how you feel about Lynch saying about the second season was ridiculous and he stopped watching it because it got so bad. Keep in mind, of course, that David Lynch had executive producer duties on this, so he had to approve every script, approve every director, which he did, because many of those directors had to actually talk to Lynch before they got the job.
Right.
So let's start with you, Eric, before I just start bashing my webcam.
Well, I just think it's engaging in a bit of revisionist history, and as you're alluding to, like Wild at Heart, making this claim that he couldn't be involved because he was doing that film, and again, you've got some actual proof that maybe you'll show a little bit later, but he was done making that movie before season 2 actually started. I mean, again, he directed the season 2 premiere, and he directed the episode that revealed Laura's killer.
Okay, I want all of you, please. I rarely ask you guys to do anything. I want all of you to just repeat after me. Lynch did not leave Twin Peaks season 2 to make Wild at Heart. I don't know where the hell this rumor started.
Yeah.
But it's been going on for years now. And even David Lynch himself is confirming to the New York Times that is what happened. Now, I don't want to hashtag I know David Lynch's life better than him, but I want to. Because let's where is it? Okay. Let's get to the facts of the situation here. David Lynch shot the pilot of Twin Peaks. Then, as they were editing it, he was prepping Wild at Heart. Once ABC confirmed that season 1 was a go, he left to make Wild at Heart while Dwayne Dunham was making episode 1. When Lynch came back, he directed episode 2 of season 1 because they were going to take the ending of that international pilot and reshape it into Cooper's dream. And they couldn't have another director take credit for that episode. So he elected to direct the other 45 minutes of the first 3/4 of that episode.
Right.
Then, and Dwayne Dunham has confirmed this, they were editing Wild at Heart while season 1 was being edited. Same time, down the hallway from each other. When the show was airing, its 6th to 7th episode, so around the time that the finale of season 1 aired, Wild at Heart premiered at the Cannes Film Festival that May, and it won the Palme d'Or. Then they re-aired Twin Peaks in the summer, and during the summer, that's when Wild at Heart came out, August 28th, 1990. Now, then the season 2 premiere came out September 30th, 1990. So we're talking what? 5 months after Wild at Heart premiered. So when the hell did he leave season 2 to do Wild at Heart? They want to say, and people have been saying, oh, he left after the Laura Palmer mystery was solved. And that's what happened. He got tired. They made him solve the mystery, and so he left and worked on Wild at Heart. So he worked on Wild at Heart 8 months after it premiered.
Well, that was, and I didn't actually get into that in my post because
I'm getting into it now.
Well, no, I understand, but that's my theory. I think what he doesn't sort of want to admit to, or maybe he's forgotten, or he's kind of combined it. I mean, it has been 27 years. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that, but is that I think he was pissed off that ABC wanted him to solve the mystery. I think. So I think he kind of stepped back and was like, I'll reveal the killer. I want to do at least that much, but I need to step back from this for a while. And again, I still think he was involved. I mean, as someone in the chat, reminded us all, and we know this, but he appeared as Gordon Cole in audio and in person a few times. But I think that was really what happened. I think he stepped back because he was mad. But he was still involved from an executive producer standpoint. And Mark Frost did a pass on every script of the show, every script. So whether it was written by Harley Payton or whoever, Mark Frost always had, a writing credit, or he was involved in fixing up the scripts before they were produced.
Right.
Well, didn't Lynch and Frost had veto power, I'm sure, on anything that...
Everything.
Everything that came to them. And also, I would love to know when exactly ABC started pressuring them. Was it after the season premiere of season 2?
No.
Was it?
No, it
was way after.
It was in between season 1 and season 2 when they were writing it.
Oh, okay.
They just said, "Can you just wrap it up?" Because people expected the season 1 finale to wrap it up, and then of course they expected the season 2 premiere to wrap it up. But I just want to say this: I think the myth about this Wild at Heart thing, about him leaving season 2 to direct Wild at Heart, came up because Lynch fans and Lynch apologists just don't want to admit to themselves that Lynch is a filmmaker and not a showrunner, and he got bored with the process of television and he left. And he didn't need the scapegoat of Wild at Heart to leave. He got bored and he left. People say, "Oh, he was busy working on other movies and stuff. He was doing Wild at Heart." No, he wasn't doing Wild at Heart. I'm so tired of hearing this shit.
Well, the book,
and the fact, and he says it in the goddamn New York Times article too. There's another part. There's 2 parts, and even the writer of the New York Times article says, "Well, Wild at Heart took up all his time during season 2, so he didn't have time to focus clearly." I'm like, what are you talking about? Do you even research your articles?
Right. Because Brad Duke's book actually tackled this topic head on. And I think from some of the actors' perspective, Lynch wasn't involved in their day-to-day. That and maybe that much is true. Maybe he wasn't showing up, helping people with things or providing advice or whatever. But from a production standpoint, all those people, that's where I'm getting my information from. Because there's information in the book about how one of the directors, and I forget who it was, but someone can go and look this up if they want, wanted to, part of their set design, they wanted the color blue. And David blew a gasket. He was like, "No, that's not part of the color palette of the show." So it's David Lynch is weighing in on set dressing and set color decisions, but he's not involved. And it was also in there where they talk about how Mark Frost was heavily involved in doing the passes on all the scripts. So it's just not, it's revisionist history. It's not accurate to say that he wasn't involved. From the actor's standpoint, he may not have been, guiding them in the scenes with them, doing his David Lynch thing, which again is great. But I mean, I'm with you. And it kind of bugs me that, the New York Times just kind of throws this information out there, kind of repeating the same thing that's been said again and again and again. And it's not true. No,
and it's factually not true. I mean, it's not an opinion. I mean, you can go by the dates.
Right. Actually, Matt LeBlanc in the chat actually mentioned something I was going to say, that if anything, Mark Frost was probably the person less involved in season 2 than David Lynch, because he actually was preparing a movie during that. Was it Storyville or Story? Right. I forget the name.
Storyville.
He was actually preparing a movie, and he still did passes on all the scripts. So it's again, maybe we're going down a cul-de-sac here. I'll leave it at this.
Cameron, listen, I think what it comes down to is what Cameron said, that he was a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Nobody had done this before.
Well, that's not true. I mean, Michael Mann was directing Miami Heat or Miami Vice and stuff.
Well, yeah, but Mark Frost was a TV guy, so he would be more to blame, if anything.
Yeah.
But David Lynch wasn't used to it. The medium was different then. Now he's all about TV. He's totally flipped his switch.
Mm-hmm.
He's all about TV. He said in the recent article he would do TV. He wouldn't do films.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's so different now, 30 years later almost.
Well, because now there's back then the concept of the showrunner. Alan Sepinwall, TV critic Alan Sepinwall, actually has a fantastic book about this. But the concept of a showrunner like we have now, these rock star showrunners like Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse and I forget the gentleman's name from Mad Men, but Vince Gilligan, all these guys, they own their shows. Like they're the David Lynch of their shows. They basically plot it out. They all they have the final say, veto power. Those shows are theirs. Back then, it really didn't work that way. To your point, Joe, and I think if there's any, and again, I get into this in my piece on my site, but I frankly think it was the mundane TV bureaucracy machinery of 1990 that impacted Twin Peaks season 2 more than anything.
So why not come out and just say that?
Right.
Why do we have to come up with this fake history where, I was busy doing this other movie and no, because then that gets people upset about Wild at Heart.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's kind of like passing the buck in a way that like kind of bugs me. Because I don't like. Listen, if you think you made some wrong decisions in the season 2 of the show, say that. Because you know what? I agree with that in some of the stories. We always joke about James and Evelyn. We always joke about little Nicky, but they're part of the show. You did it. Own it. If you said, you know what, that wasn't a good idea. I would respect that more than this weird kind of.
And like I've said a million times, right? People make fun of the James and Evelyn story.
Yeah.
But hey, that was the basis for the second half of Lost Highway.
Yes.
So let's just be honest here, right? So obviously it wasn't that bad for David Lynch.
Yeah. Yeah. And but again, the part of this, and again, I don't know if we transition into the broader thing, is I just don't like, and part of the piece that I wrote too is there's just this line, there's this narrative, this perception. People just slam season 2 all the time. And I just don't think it's accurate to the quality there is in season 2. And yes, I am referring to the post Laura Palmer story episodes of season 2, because for every, James and Evelyn, there is, the Major Briggs story, which I think really starts to delve into the deep mysteries and secrets of Twin Peaks. Really interesting stuff. I mean, when Major Briggs disappears, it's kind of like, holy crap, like that's what's going on.
It reminds me of the X-Files now when I watch it now. It really does.
Yeah.
Well,
it gets into a good place.
Duchovny was also playing in the show.
Right. And David Duchovny's character. I mean, it's actually.
It's no accident. It's no accident that they cast him as an FBI agent. I mean, coming off Twin Peaks.
Right. And I'll be honest, and like, again, this isn't typically something I am like, that I espouse, but from like an LGBT perspective, the portrayal of his character is actually really progressive for that time.
And nobody even really calls attention to it, except the fact that Dennis is now Denise. I mean, it's not like anybody gives him crap for it.
Right. And Cooper himself, like Cooper acknowledges it because it's like, again, he knew him as Dennis, but it's kind of like, okay, welcome to the case. I mean,
any shit, and they were in this, northwestern town where you expect KKK people to be coming out to be rallying.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I live up there. I can tell you there's some Trump folks up in Snoqualmie County. So in 1990, probably more of them. But and again, those are just two examples. But the Hunt for Owl Cave, I always like that story because it's like this epic quest.
You brought up something really great in your article, which is that speech that Jean Reno gives to Cooper is one of the greatest speeches in the whole show of Twin Peaks.
Oh, Michael Park.
Before you came here, the people of Twin Peaks were good people. They dealt the drugs and the girls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe if you die, the evil dies with you. I mean, come on. It's awesome.
It's almost probably the best.
It's like the speech that Rutger Hauer gives at the end of Blade Runner.
Yeah.
To me, though, almost more than Who Killed Laura Palmer, a distillation of that speech is Twin Peaks. It's like Twin Peaks was just this quiet little town, and there were bad things happening, but this girl gets murdered, and all of a sudden everything blows up. Mm-hmm. And that's why, again, I'm not demeaning the Laura Palmer mystery. It's a fantastic mystery. It's great. It is, the heart of the show in some sense. But
it was just the gateway.
Exactly. It was the door into the town.
Exposed all of that. It opened the can of worms.
Right.
Yes, because Laura was tied all up in it. Right. Exactly. I mean, again, it's like Laura brings us to Leo, who brings us to Jacques, who brings us to Bobby, who brings us to James.
Which then gets to my point.
Did you guys see that article today comparing Stephen King, to Laura Palmer and Twin Peaks, and how it opened up the can of worms for the town of Derry didn't talk about anything and everything. Just like with Laura, everybody knew what was going on. Nobody talked about it. They turned a blind eye to it.
Yeah.
In fact, if you watch Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, Dream Master, that movie plays like Fire Walk with Me in the first half of it. When you look at a Tuesday night going out with their boyfriend in the high school, that's very much Laura Palmer. I remember watching that with somebody before Fire Walk with Me came out, and they're just like, "Wow, this is like the Laura Palmer movie." At least in the first 30 minutes of that movie, it is because Freddy's Bob and that type of thing. But yeah. I mean, it works. Seriously, I'm not kidding you. Try it out. You will be shocked how much it's like Twin Peaks in that first 30 minutes of that movie.
Right. But I think the general point and the thing that I was trying to get across is that I guess I just don't for the past 27 years, 12 for me, 27 for you. This has been Twin Peaks. These have been the stories we have had, that we've talked about, that we've poured over. That's the story. All of it. We don't just get to pick, I just like season 1. It's like, well, no, the whole show is the story, and it's all that we had. And I am so happy we're getting new stuff. I'm really glad. And I'm glad Mark Frost and David Lynch are right behind it, doing the whole thing together. But I just don't like this kind of shitting on certain parts of season 2. Let's just hope they ignore that. It's like, well, no, it happened. And again, we can all joke about the Ben Horn. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
It's funny because you say, you're kind of a newcomer compared to some of the people, on the show. And what I think happened is that people forget that we were enthralled in that mystery when it was happening, but then the time got shuffled, the Gulf War happened.
Okay,
exactly
and
right.
So the people that were with that were enthralled in those mysteries, but then the people that saw it on home video after were like, what the hell is this shit? You know what I mean? But see, you took it from a different standpoint, whereas you saw it years later, and you're like, no, that's the show. But a lot of people don't. They're on the other side of that.
Well,
because they didn't experience it as it came. You just saw Leland Palmer's funeral, and then all of a sudden everything went to shit. It was,
Well, let me throw out some. Hold on to all your thoughts, Eric. Let me throw out some other nuggets of truth because Joe just brought these up. And you brought up in your article too about how
I did touch on that, Joe,
about the Gulf War and everything. Well, let me tell you a little story about Twin Peaks in the second half that they don't talk about. They don't talk about this, and you Generation 1 fans, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Well, they always gloss over it in these articles. It's just like, and season 2 went to hell. It's like, well, there's a bigger story there.
Well, here's the bigger story. So yeah, the Gulf War, it never got really preempted. I mean, it was on Saturday nights. They didn't really talk about the war on Saturday nights, Right. But here's the thing: this is what they don't tell you, and this is what they never mention. The episode where Josie dies and becomes the doorknob. The show was over. ABC canceled it. The last 6 episodes were never going to air.
Right.
I'm not kidding you. I've been pouring through my VHS archives tonight, and yes, they have on that episode. There's a news broadcast that comes on during the commercial and says, "Say goodbye to Agent Cooper. Tonight's Twin Peaks is the last." It was over. So then what happened was that I guess some people, wrote letters and that type of thing, and they were like, "Well, we're sitting on 6 episodes." Now, this isn't like today where if they canceled the show, they would just release the last 6 episodes on the box set. They didn't do box sets back then. So they're sitting there like, well, we've already spent like, what, $8 million total on these last 6 episodes. We gotta make some of that money back in the commercial revenue. And we'll try to at least get half of it back. So about 2 months later, they aired 4 episodes when Cooper ends with Cooper kissing Annie and the giant showing up and going, no, 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 right?
Yeah.
Then it was over again. And then 3 weeks later, or maybe 4 weeks later, the Sunday night movie was the last 2 cut together as one movie. Not with separate credits like we get now on the DVD and Blu-ray sets. It was 1 2-hour film.
Right.
And then it was over.
Yeah. Which is, by the way, how I saw it. Because remember, I always tell you I watched it in my college course. Right. That was how my professor showed it to us. It was a taping of the original broadcast of it, which was pretty cool. But
yes,
anyway.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. So a lot of people say, oh, the Gulf War did it, this and that, and then people didn't watch it and it got canceled. No. ABC canceled the show, and we had to wait a month and a half, 2 months, and we never even thought we'd see the last 6 episodes.
Right.
And then they gave us 4. And then it was over again.
Right.
And then 3 weeks later, or a month later, like I said, they just dropped the last 2 as a Sunday night movie, and then it was over. And then I'm sitting like, okay. And then about a month and a half later, remember I read that to you, the announcement in the TV guide, new Shrieks for Peaks, a movie is coming out, and it's going to be about Laura Palmer. And everyone was like, oh my God, it's so great. Now, the thing is that Lynch is going on and on about how goofy and ridiculous season 2 is. And I get it. There's a lot of people who don't like the Pine Weasel stuff and the Little Nicky stuff and the James and Evelyn stuff and all that. I get it. And Nadine.
Can I defend the Pine Weasel for one moment?
No, I love it. I love it.
Because it's goofy, but it actually serves a narrative. I mean, again, it's corporate espionage and intrigue between Ben Horne and Catherine. He's trying to stop her from developing Ghostwood because she manipulated him into signing it away when she was his only alibi for Laura's murder. I mean, yeah, it's goofy that they kind of focus on it the way that they do, but it's not like they're just hanging around talking about a Pine Weasel for no reason. Like, Ben's trying to game the system. I mean, there's a legitimate purpose. Sorry, go ahead. I needed to insert.
I totally agree. And the thing is, though, for all these subplots that people criticize and complain about, if you pull them out and just look at them as scenes, they're still very well written, very well acted, very well directed. Yes, it may not be the Twin Peaks you want, but they're not bad scenes. Like all that stuff with Ben Horne doing the whole Civil War, it's crazy.
I also like that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, listen. At the time, I get it because we didn't know where this was going, and we had to wait a week between episodes. But when you watch it, as Eric said before, if you watch it as sort of a few episodes at a time, it flows together.
Yeah,
it's not.
It's not like this stuff is random. It actually, and that's why I bring up that part about the generational differences, is because when I watched them on DVD originally, like I didn't even watch them on Netflix. I'm a little older than some of the hipster whippersnappers that James loves so much, but it's I had to go to I forget what it was. I think I looked at Blockbuster and they didn't have it. Hollywood Video, that was the competing chain, like a lower budget Blockbuster. I had to go to Hollywood Video because they were the only video chain that had Twin Peaks the show on DVD. So that's where I had to go to get it and to seek these out. But because it was on DVD, I could watch them like one after the other, and I loved it. I mean, even after Laura died, looking at it with a 10,000-foot view after the fact, sure, I think they really should have done a better job of transitioning into the next main story, the Wyndham Earl arc. But at the time, I was just so enamored with this show. And because I could watch one episode after the other, I was still enjoying it. And again, it's just like to me that story of the latter half of the season, in addition to Wyndham Earl and Annie and some of that other stuff, it's really more about Cooper falling in love with the town. I mean, that's the love story of Twin Peaks.
Yeah, right. I think you say that in your article too, that it's not about Laura Palmer, it's about Cooper's relationship with the town. I mean, I could say a lot of things. I think when I first saw Cooper looking at himself in the mirror as Bob, I remember thinking, wow, so this series was really about Cooper's innocence to corruption.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
that's a way to look at it.
There's so many ways you can interpret this series. But you know, I just find it interesting that there's just so many stories by people and articles written by you know, young people, which no fault their own. They want to write about Twin Peaks, but they weren't there, so they have no idea like what was really happening and what the fans all went through.
Yeah, context is important.
It is.
Particularly for this, because you can't. I think some people just assume they solved the Laura Palmer mystery and then the show got bad, so it got canceled, and that there are so many things that went into it, you know.
And let me say this: the show had terrible ratings prior to the Laura Palmer mystery being solved.
Yeah.
Because listen, people want to complain. Okay, I'm a Twin Peaks apologist. I love everything about Twin Peaks, but but I'm honest too. Okay, David Lynch setting up the second season. That first episode of the second season killed all momentum for that second season right from the start. I don't care how
first 10 minutes.
I don't care if you love that episode. I don't care if I think it's wonderful. It doesn't matter. The point is, at the time, people waited 3 months. Then they re-aired it in between that 3 months, and then we got that Alan Thicke special where they were hyping up the new Twin Peaks, and then they dropped it on us September 30th, and literally Agent Cooper is lying on the ground, and there's a waiter having him sign the gratuity bill while bleeding. You have no idea how many adults of my friends, their parents, said to me, "Why do you watch that shit? We turned that off." So,
of course,
so
it went on forever. It seems like
right, and like I said, it's
really
no. I'm not being critical of the show.
Yeah,
I'm saying that is not the way you start off 22 episodes with in that day and age.
Well, it's the way David Lynch starts off 22 episodes.
Right. And of course, you know, I mean, he loves that long stuff. I mean, look at in the finale with the old guy from Wild at Heart crossing the bank, you know, for however long. Right. So, I mean, it I'm not saying it doesn't work. What I'm saying though is that it didn't work for audiences. And then the second episode, you know, instead of Cooper being in the Great Northern, and then we hear, oh, there's this convention going on, or this little convention going on. Now the conventions are becoming more cartoony. They're becoming bigger and livelier. And Cooper doesn't look like he fits into his suit very well. His hair is growing bigger, and it's supposed to be the next day, and yet it feels like 5 months later.
Right.
And it's just. The show, listen, I love all these episodes, but the show does take an episode or two to find its footing again as it goes on. Even though I love the episodes, I just think it takes, once we get to the Harold Smith stuff, okay, it starts revving back up. And then it goes all the way until Laura Palmer's mystery is solved, the Tim Hunter episode, which is brilliant. And even I would say the episode after that, the whole Leland Wake thing, I think is a brilliant next episode.
Yeah.
You know, where it kind of loses is what we've been saying for a long time, which is it's that 4 episodes between Major Briggs disappearing and, you know, Josie dying, that middle part, because not a lot happens.
Yeah, the main story, if you can identify one in that period, really is the Cooper versus Jean Renault, which in of itself wasn't a really strong enough story. I mean, it's so simple. It's just Jean Reno wants to kill Cooper. Like, but there's not much complexity to it. It doesn't have the narrative weight of Laura Palmer, and it doesn't have the narrative weight of what would come later, the Cooper versus Wyndham Earle story. Which, by the way, the Cooper versus Wyndham Earle story, like, you need to give credit to that story as well for giving us so much more insight into Cooper's character.
Mm-hmm.
When Cooper comes into town, he's just like this know-it-all agent. He's super smart. He's suave. He's the hero. And it's the Wyndham Earle stuff where you start to learn about some of the cracks in that facade. And again, he's no less a hero, but, you learn at one time he was a vulnerable young man. He fell in love. He did some other things. Like, to me, that's a lot of the stuff about Cooper that's endearing. And again, that's looking at the whole show picture.
And then in that episode of Leland's Wake, when Audrey comes to his room and, he tells her about Caroline, and Audrey says, there's one thing wrong with you. You're perfect. And then it cuts to Cooper, and he's not like this stoic, like, yeah, I'm perfect. He doesn't even believe that what Audrey's saying to him. He doesn't even think he's a good person.
Yeah.
After telling that story, you can just read it on his face. And, so when people say, oh yeah, all that stuff was just terrible, I'm like, Kyle MacLachlan did some of his best acting after the Laura Palmer mystery.
I agree. And you know what? It's because his character did expand and open up. And he wasn't just the stoic Boy Scout from wherever,
And I love that too. I love all that stuff too. I'm just saying that it needed to open up a little bit. And as I was...
Right.
Good.
Well, sorry. The one thing I was going to note is that because I've been rewatching the show lately, and I've actually watched the pilot a few times, because like the Cooper character actually does undergo some pretty big transformation in the pilot. While he's amusing, he's a little bit of a hard ass in that one. And if you look at the Cooper from the pilot, even into the next episode, he's a little bit harder edged. I mean, yeah, he like tweaks the sheriff's nose. I think that's in the pilot. Maybe it's not, but. It's not,
no,
but he says, "You're right."
See how sweaty we're getting really
he's
sweaty.
He's much more eccentric in the pilot. He's very
but he's harder edge. I mean, the way he really goes at Bobby, the way he comes off as a meaner guy.
I love when he says that.
Right.
You didn't love her anyway. Right?
Well, even that whole thing where it's sort of like, here's how this works. I ask the questions. You answer the question.
Right.
Like,
he's never like that the rest of the series.
Right. No, he's not. But to Joe's point, like, so he's like that in the pilot, but then it's almost like the town begins to bring out this. I have for me, and again, I don't know whether this is true or an acting decision, but for me, the town starts to bring out like this light inside of Cooper. Because if you even think about how he is in Fire Walk with Me, like he's this very intense personality there too. But the town seems to bring out this light, this goodness in him. Mm-hmm. And to Joe's point, that even further expands post Laura's death as we start to invest in his past and all that other stuff.
So when Jean Reno is talking to him in that, and when he's got him, kind of bunkered down in Dead Dog Farm, and he's telling him that, you came to town and you brought this with you.
Yeah,
I believe Cooper at that point in time, he's actually believing what Jean Reno is saying. I don't believe for one second that Cooper's like, yeah, he's just rattling off some BS here. I really do think that he's like, you know what? Maybe this town would be better off if I left, or maybe I was gone.
Well,
that's why him and Annie connect so well, because the fact that she tried to kill herself, and I think that there's that connection that Cooper almost has a death wish.
Don't forget.
Yeah.
He tells Harry Goes and Sarah Palmer that he's a strong sender, and that's why he didn't go there when they was doing the sketch of Bob,
right?
Because he has this otherworldly kind of something going on,
right?
And I mean that could be something too.
I always forget about that line. That's a good one. Good one, Joe.
Yeah, I've been rewatching it too, and I forgot about that, and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even realize he said that. He's a strong sender, so something is carried with him to there. Then we watch Fire Walk with Me. He obviously knew what was going on, going back to Fire Walk with Me.
I don't like that part, but go ahead.
Well, no, I know. Well,
because he doesn't come to Twin Peaks and like, you know what? I had this vision. This girl worked on Meals on Wheels, and here she is working on,
Well, because it's like going back and doing the prequels of Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. It's revisionist. It's revisionist screenwriting. Is what it is. And but anyway.
Yeah. But just generally speaking, if I can just put a cap on why I wrote the piece I did, it was more about, I just don't like how people are dumping all over season 2. Listen, I am as critical as the next person, and maybe even like you, I could be considered a Twin Peaks apologist at times, but there are parts I really don't like. I think having an entire story piloted by Andy and Dick Tremaine about some weird little kid, like whoever thought that was a story worth airtime, deserves some kind of punishment.
It was good enough for Adam Sandler. He stole it.
Wow.
Little Nicky.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not apologizing for all of it, but I just think there is better material there than just this, like, oh well, season 2 is terrible. It's like, no, it's really not.
And that's what really pisses me off whenever like Sherilyn Fenn or Kimmy Robertson are being interviewed. They always throw that season under the bus too. Kimmy's like, yeah, I didn't understand it. I thought it sucked.
Well, because now
so did Kyle MacLachlan for years. Kyle MacLachlan threw Lynch and the show under the bus.
And listen. I love Kyle MacLachlan. I've been following his career forever. I'm a huge fan of him. Him as Jeffrey Beaumont in Blue Velvet and Cooper in Twin Peaks. Masterful acting. But it's his fault too that Twin Peaks went under for so long. Because if he hadn't been so like, well, I'm a movie star now, I'm not going to do your Twin Peaks movie. Right. Do you realize how amazing Fire Walk with Me would have been if Cooper and Kiefer Sutherland was investigating the Teresa Banks murder?
Well, then, see, if they were doing that, I don't think they would have needed to do the part you were just kind of maligning, Cameron. Like the whole, like, oh, well, I kind of imagine. They put that in there because they could only get him for so long, and they needed his appearance.
Yeah, they had to put him connected to it somehow.
Yeah.
And let's be honest here. This is what happened. He didn't want to do it. And then at the 11th hour, he was like, okay, I'll do it. And they said, well, we kind of changed your role. We changed it from Dale Cooper to Chet Desmond. We flipped the initials. And he's like, no, I really want to do it. Well, sorry. Well, I guess we can have you for a couple scenes and then have you in the Black Lodge at the end, touching Laura's shoulder. And it's like, what?
Well, it would have been the whole thing. It would have been everything he shot. So it's kind of like, oh, and we'll also do some additional post-series stuff, which, again, didn't make it into the movie. But his role was slightly bigger than what was ultimately in the movie, but not by much.
Right.
Well, because we got it in the missing pieces, with the Great Northern and stuff. Right. Which was great to see. I mean, that was my favorite part of the missing pieces. Most of them, after you see Annie rush to the hospital and then the Great Northern. That was really nice to see.
It was nice to see. I complained to Cameron, I think, when they first came out, that it just annoyed me how it just says like some months later, and I'm like, no, not some months, 1 month. 1 month. There's only 29 episodes.
No. I'll tell you why. And this and I'm not, again, this is my Twin Peaks apologist here.
Okay, all right.
Because she dies in February 24th.
Okay.
Right? After Laura's murder is solved, there's 3 days that pass.
Okay.
For the funeral. So then that takes us into the right at the beginning of April. So technically 2 months have gone by. Some months I don't like it, but that's how I justify it.
Okay.
It's like just barely over a month.
I know.
It's not in April. It's still in March because there's like go on like the Twin Peaks wiki. I think every episode has like the actual date with it too. So I agree that technically yes, it is more than a month, but saying some months later makes it sound like, oh my gosh, this is a really long time later.
Keep in mind, Lynch edited this himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't give two shits about continuity, which drives me nuts.
Yeah, I know.
And I've had people say to me like, "Oh, well, what does it matter? I mean, continuity, spontaneity. I mean, let Lynch just do whatever he wants." And like, no, because
he feels the magic of the moment. I mean, it's just this esoteric kind of thing.
No,
there's two crazy.
There's two timelines. The series has a legitimate timeline.
Yeah.
That does not go against itself.
Yeah.
The movie has an entirely different timeline.
Yeah.
Now, Mark Frost's book has a third timeline, right? And we know that the book is probably not going to factor too much into this show.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is that I don't
We
like.
hope not.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Well, the thing is, I don't want Lynch to think. Well, see, here's the other thing. This is where the other revisionist part gets to me. He was so in love with Laura Palmer that he decided to go back in time and make a movie about her, right? And let's do the prequel film. We're gonna do Fire Walk with Me. Well, that doesn't go over too well. So he's like, okay, fine. People don't care about Laura Palmer. Fine. Twin Peaks is dead. It's dead to me. It's dead to everybody. It's dead as a doornail for 20-something years. Now, he's like, okay, new Twin Peaks. Guess what it's about? Laura Palmer again. And guess what I'm going to base it off of? That's right. The movie that nobody really appreciates. I'm going to rub your freaking nose in it like a dog's nose and shit. And you're going to love Fire Walk with Me. And it's like, come on.
Let me take the opportunity to pull you back just a tiny bit, because I think you're overstating what he said.
No,
I really do.
So he's saying that Fire Walk with Me is a major component to understanding this new season.
Well, I think it was even in the New York Times article. I think even in the New York Times article, or maybe it was the Rolling Stone one. But in one of those, I think the interviewer asked him that question, and he goes, "Hold on, that's a misquote." I said, "It's important, but it's not." He's kind of walking back the perception of his quotes there.
Listen, I really, really, really like Fire Walk with Me. That being said, I don't want it to be the basis for the timeline for this new show, because it seems like more of like Lynch just saying, you know what, this wasn't appreciated, people didn't like it, but now I'm going to make it so canon up your ass that you're going to have to.
So John Thorne, the guy who wrote Wrapped in Plastic, the magazine, or whatever, he posted a newspaper clip. I think it was earlier today. I actually liked it, and I think I even commented on it. He responded. It was a clip of an interview with Mark Frost, where someone made a comment about, like, well, what do you think about Fire Walk with Me? And Frost's response was, I just think it leaves a bad taste in your mouth as a fan for like Fire Walk with Me to be that last, kind of that last flavor of Twin Peaks that you get. Maybe someday if there's a way to go back to it, I think it'd be nice to do that, because that's not really a satisfying conclusion. So I bring that up because as a response to what you're saying, I have to believe that if Mark Frost is involved, and he and David Lynch truly are partners on this, that he's the voice of reason on that point.
But we haven't seen Mark Frost.
Yeah, but the other thing is that Lynch and Frost are partners, but Lynch had no problem, just going off, not waiting 3 months, just going off without Frost and writing Fire Walk with Me with Engels. I mean, think about what Fire Walk with Me would have been like if Frost and Lynch had wrote it.
Well, again, and I think at the time, I think there was a falling out, and I think they've even admitted that they kind of got separated a little bit. There was a little bit of some animosity there, but it clearly got cleaned up. Mm-hmm. And so I think having Frost involved here is what kind of gives me a level of comfort with the whole Fire Walk with Me thing, because I think Frost is going to be the voice of reason, trying to bring some rationality to that.
What he's going to be doing, and I don't mean this to sound weird, but he is such a good writer, and he knows how to position things in terms of screenwriting, that he'll know how to retcon things to make it make sense.
Right.
But that's a full-time job, because Fire Walk with Me creates a timeline that does not exist in the show. For instance, as I've said many, many times. So, and one thing I brought up with Joel last night. So which timeline are we following? Did James call Laura, or did her dad call Laura from Ben Horn's office? Because the show,
Cam, we might get a whole new timeline.
That's what
not even have.
And you know what though? And that is why earlier today, when I was in the group chat with you guys and talking about this, I thought to myself, just today, I know it's going to change, but just today I was thinking, you know what? I might be okay with not even watching this new series if this is the road we're going down, because I don't want to see, what I consider to be, one of, if not the greatest television show of all time, negated and say, no, this is the new timeline. This is the new Twin Peaks. I've been like, no, it's not. This is my Twin Peaks.
What worries me is there's all these theories out there, and they're based on some of the other Lynch works, like Inland Empire and Mulholland Drive, and some of these other ones that he did, where it's like, oh, well, there's going to be like alternate realities and different timelines. And I got to tell you, I hope that's not true, because to me, and again, I said at the beginning, I don't have a ton of expectations on this. I mean, again, probably the one thing I want to know more than anything is what happened to Cooper. And again, I don't need someone doesn't need to walk out with a textbook. Well, you see, here's exactly. Again, I have a brain. I can figure things out. But if we start like saying, oh, well, the original show was in like universe A, but this is universe C, and it's all because the worlds are liquid. Like that's gonna put me off. Like I'm just gonna come out and stake my flag in the ground right there. That if we start pulling that kind of crap, like that, because to me that's not gonna be satisfying.
Like Earth 2, like DC Universe.
Yeah, because this isn't Fringe, okay? There was a Fringe. That was a show that was really good that did its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Jacoby reference, by the way. Hope there's some Fringe fans out there. But if that's the road they start going down, I think I will be disappointed in it. And so I just hope that.
I don't think they're going to go in that direction, though, Eric. I don't think they're going to go for that just to do it. I think it is going to be more like a Mulholland Drive, Inland Empire, the way it's shot.
Yeah.
I mean, the way he shot it in 18 hours straight, just then divvied it up. I mean, God knows what we're going to get. The last thing he made was Inland Empire.
Yeah.
And
Cameron, what do you feel about that?
What do I think about Inland Empire? It's a movie I could cut up in a million different ways and stitch it back together blind, and it would still be the same quality of film.
Yeah.
Like you could put those scenes literally in almost any order, and it's still the same movie. But I maintain
it's not a bad film.
No, but I do maintain though that there is a great 95-minute movie in that 4.5 hours of chaos.
Oh, of course. Some great performances.
Right. But you got to sit through all of this nonsense. I know there's masterpiece Inland Empire fans out there. They're just like, it's the greatest thing ever. But I'm telling you, there's a great 95-minute Eraserhead cut you could make in Inland Empire, and it would be amazing.
Well, Cam, you were one of the first ones to say when we heard about the new Twin Peaks, and then 18 hours, you were one of the first ones to say, are we going to get 18 hours of fucking Inland Empire?
That's true. He's been saying that for a while.
No, Cameron was one of the first ones to say that. And I think that has some justification, because I mean, we don't know what we're going to get here.
Right.
Especially
what made me convinced of that is it's like Steven Spielberg, right? He did Schindler's List and Amistad and all these big movies in the history films, and then he did the Tom Cruise films and all that stuff. But when he went to do Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, he tried to go back to being 1989 Spielberg, even though he had grown so much as a filmmaker, and it just did not play. It felt like somebody pretending to be Steven Spielberg making.
That's a good metaphor. I didn't think of that.
And and the thing is, though, Lynch is somebody who is, like a shark. He keeps moving forward. He keeps adapting his style. As much as I would love to see the old Twin Peaks, I didn't want to see Lynch now trying to be 1990 David Lynch again, because I don't think he really has it in him. I think he has. But I don't want to see the Inland Empire version either. I want to see something new.
I hope we get the new.
Yeah, because even just like the way that the show is filmed, because it's on sets, it has that very sort of 90s TV show feel at times. Everything's very bright. I'm not expecting that. And again, I've actually liked what I've seen from the teasers that Showtime has revealed. So yeah, I at least for me, like I'm definitely not anticipating a retread.
Twin Peaks in any way.
What, Joe?
No.
The teasers we've seen did not look like the old Twin Peaks.
No, and but it doesn't look like Inland Empire either. I mean, it has a couple shots, but it feels like something new, which is what I want to see.
Right.
The thing is, I was like, I don't know. I mean, everyone's talking about Inland Empire now, saying it's like something from an art gallery, and that type of thing. David Lynch, I mean, he will never, ever admit it. But even David Lynch, I'm going to speak for him now, is he is a little upset about Inland Empire, because I've read an interview before where he said is the only film he's ever made that lost money. And it's been 11 years since he's made another film. So that says to me that there was trouble in the financing department, even though he's self-financed Inland Empire primarily, except maybe a little bit from that Polish company. So there's that, right? I mean, he just couldn't get a lot of work. This Twin Peaks is maybe the only job that like came to him, you know. And
yeah, he was content to do his art shows and sell his coffee and make music.
Certainly doesn't help when I, meet Jennifer Lynch and I just casually asked her, I said, so what did you think of Inland Empire? Expecting her to be like, oh, my dad's film. No, she was like, she looked at me and she said, I really, really miss Mary Sweeney's editing. And then I've seen other interviews where Jennifer Lynch is on there and someone says, what do you think is your dad's worst film? Without missing a beat, she's like, Inland Empire.
Right.
I mean, it's insane that even his own daughter is like, no. And the thing is though, is that he was so in love with this new technology of video that he couldn't restrain himself down to a tight film length, because like when he does films, yeah, he shoots a lot of stuff, but he also knows, okay, I can only print so much film and this and that. I got to work within the budget. When it's video, it was like limitless what he could do. So it got
how
bigger.
big's my hard drive? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. There was lack of inhibition because he didn't have to.
But in all fairness, Cam, people said the same thing about Fire Walk With Me when it debuted. Said it was overindulgent Lynch.
Right.
I mean, people said the same thing. Quentin Tarantino said the same thing about him at Cannes.
But the thing is though, is that, look, I know things are subjective. And again, I needed to make a video that's like pro Fire Walk With Me because I talk so much shit about it. But
you always say you love it, and then all we do is crap on it.
No, because listen.
Cameron, you're a big fan of that movie.
No, huge fan. But I'm somebody like, okay, when they interviewed Patricia Keneally, who was the quote unquote witch that went out with Jim Morrison, right? When they interviewed her for about Oliver Stone's movie, The Doors, she says, the thing that pisses me off about that movie is I'm not saying those things didn't happen in Jim Morrison's life. I'm saying that's not all that happened. Exactly. And that's my issue with Fire Walk With Me, is I think that it's really good. I think the performances are strong. I think just the scenes work. I'm really happy with the film.
Most of them.
Right. But what I'm saying though is that I think that I can sense watching it how much is missing. And I don't mean just from the missing pieces. I'm talking about how much is missing. And I yes, I understand there's film length and that type of thing. But look,
Laura Palmer was more than that movie.
Laura Palmer was not just, listen, if you go by that movie, Leland Palmer should have been arrested the first day. Yeah. Right? I'm sorry, but it's true, because he's a nutcase that entire movie.
You would think that like Doc Haywood might have said something, because there's all these like lingering shots. Now this is in the missing pieces, not at the main movie, but it really does seem
they knew what was going on.
Yeah.
Everyone knew what was going on in those missing pieces. The mother knew. Doc Hayward knew. Her mother knew. I mean, everybody knew what was going on, and from the looks of it. And in the series, you don't get that at all.
All right. Yeah. Now I'm gonna throw something else out there, and I know it's subjective, but I'm gonna tell you it's really not. I am sick and tired of people calling Fire Walk With Me a masterpiece, and let me explain why. Blue Velvet is a masterpiece. If you watch the deleted scenes in Blue Velvet, you'll be like, you know what? It's really good. I'm glad to have seen them. I can see why they weren't in the movie.
Yep.
Wild at Heart. You see the deleted scenes on the green box set. All right, pretty good stuff. Can see why they're not in the movie. Wild at Heart is great the way it is. Fire Walk With Me. I can make a case for several of those missing pieces to be in the film. The fact that they're not in the film means there's a hole missing. That's one aspect of it. If I can improve the film in any way, then it's not a masterpiece the way it is now.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, is that, Leo Johnson is this threatening, menacing presence in season 1. In Fire Walk with Me, he's got a couple scenes, and one of those scenes is played for laughs. The fact that he hits Shelley across the head.
Yeah, the fact he's beating his wife.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Oh, he was so badly acted in that scene too.
Well, it doesn't bother me.
This is where we live.
Well, that's the thing. It's but it looks like
you gotta have a good attitude. That's the key.
Right.
Sorry.
Exactly. It's amusing. It's funny, but it comes out of nowhere. It's like they might as well have just thrown in the Norma and Ed scene in the car for in the middle of this film if they're going to just do stuff like that.
And that was one of the better acted.
Oh my God, that I think is one of the best scenes I've ever seen. I cannot believe how amazing that Norma and Ed scene is. Not just because the scene itself.
And I love the scene at Doc Hayward's house when he's telling Laura about the angel, which we get the payoff later with, but it's left out of the movie.
But
that was another reason why I'm saying the missing pieces. All these people. Did you see the look when they say that your dad's here? The look that he gives Eileen.
Mm-hmm.
The look he gives her, like they know that her father is molesting her.
See,
they've known it for years.
Well,
but
I don't know that they know.
Not in the series at all.
I don't know that they know he's molesting her, but I think they just recognize that there's a really bad home life there. That Leland is like a not unbalanced guy.
They know something is going on.
Right, but there's none of that in the series. You don't get Doc Hayward saying, Agent Cooper.
No,
Laura and her dad had a very interesting relationship. No,
right.
Yeah.
No.
All I remember is him comforting Leland at the hospital in the pilot episode. Like, how could this happen?
All right. So, okay. So, and the other thing the thing that pisses me off about the Doc Hayward scene is because the tag for that scene.
Oh, here we go again with the.
Okay,
with
never
the
mind. Never mind.
No,
I'm done with it. I'm done with it.
Are we going to talk about the flower? The flower.
Yeah, because you see the shot when James Hurley takes off on his bike, the camera starts to pan down, and then it cuts to Laura walking through the woods. And the pan down was supposed to be the blue flower that he left.
Right.
All right. So anyway,
I'm just picking on you, man.
I know you are. But yeah, it's the thing about Fire Walk with Me is like I think it's a very good film. The thing is though is that if you go by that story in Fire Walk with Me. And then, because I know some people, crazy people out there, who watch the movie, then watch the series. And they were sitting there through the series going, what the hell? No, who are all these people? Who's this Ben Horn? He's not even in the movie.
Yeah.
How is he a major suspect? Right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, he wanted to shoot this scene with Jack Nance and Joan Chen just because in the pilot, again, Lynch watched the pilot, and so he got inspired because Jack Nance goes 2x4, 4x8.
2x4.
So we're gonna have a whole scene where this elderly guy wants a 2x4. Come on, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. But the thing is,
that was an unnecessary scene.
Well, that's why I was left on the floor. But what I'm saying is, even when you were shooting that scene, how did you not know this wasn't going to be in the film? It's ridiculous.
Where did it even go? Like, I'm not sure where that scene would have fit.
It is honestly, it's
that
random.
Scene didn't connect at all.
No,
anything.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So the thing is,
but you like you said, he only watched the pilot.
Right.
And
this is
he just said again, I watched the pilot in Fire Walk with Me. I didn't rewatch the series at all. And I wrote 18 episodes of stuff with Mark Frost.
Right. I think before you hopped on, like we talked about, Mark Frost did watch the whole series again. Like he said it a few times on Twitter. It's come up in interviews, and so he has.
Well, you would know,
at least one
just from reading the book.
Yeah,
reading the book, you can tell he had to read it. But then you read the book, and you read the book, and you're like, what the fuck did he even take from the series? Because it's totally like, I mean, he went in a completely different direction.
Well, I made a joke, I think, with Joel the other day about how I believe this new book's coming out, The Final Dossier, will be the book that we expected the first book to be. And Lynch just made him push it back. And then Lynch said to him, that like history book you were writing, can you like just tweak it a little bit and release that as the first Twin Peaks book?
Yeah.
That's what I feel like happened.
I could totally see that. that.
Did you actually see the other day, Welcome to Twin Peaks had an article that someone figured out there's a code on the Bookhouse Boy thing, which I actually thought was kind of interesting. The books in the Bookhouse.
It was, but
go ahead. Just tell me what it was.
Oh, sorry. So it said, I think it was Fear the Double. Essentially, like if you like figure out the first letter of the books in the order of the number. Again, you read the article on their site, but I thought that was kind of interesting, and it's kind of just further.
But it's definitely. I know. No, it's definitely an
that.
Easter egg. It's definitely an Easter egg, but it tells us like really nothing. I mean, because we know to fear Cooper as Bob. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
We already know there's a doppelganger. We already know that.
Right, but I think it sort of plays into the. I think it plays into the mythology around this book, though, that it's not meant to be taken literally. That someone is doing something with this book as like a code to somebody about what's really going on. And again, I know it's a cheap ploy, Cameron, that the book that's coming out this fall is what we really wanted.
I guarantee you, 3/4 of the people that are going to watch this new show did not read that book.
Oh God, yeah. I think 3/4. I think you're being generous with that number.
Yeah, I mean, maybe half of the people that don't watch the show. I mean, I don't. I was very disappointed about the book. I know Cameron was very disappointed with it.
Disappointed. I mailed that sucker back.
You were very upset. Did
you? I got my money back.
Did you?
What's that look for?
I was going to read it again recently.
I have the audio. Listen, I have the audio of it. So, I'm not too concerned about it. If I need to revisit it all, I'd rather hear Kyle MacLachlan reading than me having to skim through it. No, what happened was Amazon sent it to me damaged.
I think the only thing that mattered was probably the last 10, 12 pages or so, where they said that Cooper took the thing and he went off, and then Major Briggs had the meltdown or whatever.
Right.
That was probably the only things that mattered in the whole book.
Well, yeah, Amazon.
I mean, he went to Lewis and Clark.
Oh yeah,
come on.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And, Amazon sent it to me damaged, but I wasn't gonna not read it, And I was prepared to just have them send me a new one, And then after I read it, and I was so horrified by what I was seeing, I just said, "Keep it, please. Just take it away."
It was hard to get through. I'm not gonna lie. I read all the time. I'm reading a book right now. I read all the time, and that was a tough read. The first 50 pages or so, that was not an easy read. It was very tedious at times, and I had to read the script and the handwritten notes.
Well, it was very hard to read some of it too, so that was another factor to it. But I was so thrilled to dive. See, that was the other thing. It's like, wow, this looks amazing. I can't wait to dive in. And then there's no water in the pool, and you just hit the ground, thud.
Right.
Anyway, but hey, since we're having fun talking about Fire Walk with Me. Let me just throw out a couple more things, because again, Lynch was so inspired by the pilot, right? So Donna's telling James, I knew her better than she thought I did. Becomes Donna topless in the pink room, right? Come on. I mean, you know where that scene, what she says to James, is really about? It's that story that Donna tells Harold Smith. That's how that syncs up, right? We didn't need to have this Donna Hayward sexual escapade, 3 days before Laura's death.
Listen, let's not malign Moira Kelly topless scenes, okay? However we get them, we get them.
I know, and she was topless.
I'm not gonna lie.
She was topless.
I liked it. I enjoyed it. I remember watching it. I was 9 or 10 at the time. Remember watching it, and I was like, oh, my mother's like, shut your eyes.
Well, that's the thing is,
because my mother, my mother worked at, my mother ran a West Coast Video when I was a kid when that came out. And I just remember she was so excited when Fire Walk With Me came out. And we watched it, and I remember sitting there with my mother and my great grandmother.
Oh my God!
Who's now 96, watching, because we used to watch Twin Peaks, and watching this, and she's like, shut your eyes. Like,
she probably said that a lot.
Well, I just want to say Moira Kelly was naked a lot in 1992 because she did a couple topless moments in Chaplin. And then of course Fire Walk With Me. So so she, God bless her. and then she disappeared. I mean, she did. Was it One Tree Hill, or was that the show? Or no, she was on One Tree Hill. She played the mom, I think.
So we don't even know if she was in One Tree Hill, but a lot of those girls, even all the Twin Peaks girls, were in those early mid 90s shows.
They were all in Dawson's Creek,
on the WB,
and Gossip Girl and all that stuff.
Gossip Girl,
and so the thing is though is that so you say, I mean, the Lynch and Engel says, oh yeah, we watched the pilot and that's how we wrote Fire Walk With Me, but obviously, I mean, there's a lot in Fire Walk With Me that doesn't come from the pilot. I mean, they brought in Annie. You know, I mean,
the owl cave symbol.
The owl cave symbol.
Right. A lot of the missing scenes don't match Fire Walk with Me at all. The whole damn meadow, none of that does, except for the fact that Teresa Banks died. I mean, if you think about it. And Sam Stanley, the one mentioned, don't give it to Sam. That was it.
Right. And
Which seems like an odd detail to like, oh, let's pay that off.
But the thing is, though, but why don't we have? But then why not include the scene in Fire Walk with Me of Dale Cooper and Sam together? Because that's that's a pretty good scene, and that explains why he gets
one of the best scenes. And
that's why he gets to the Fat Trout Trailer Park. It connects to that. You know,
that was a great scene when he goes to his room and the thing's going off, and
I mean,
that's why he says Sam's not as on the ball as Miguel Ferrer,
right?
Yeah,
because you know, he's like, oh, did you hear about my? He talks about the machine and everything.
You know,
that cracked the Whitman case.
The thing that happened with Fire Walk with Me is I remember at the time, the prevailing attitude, besides the fact that it was an overindulgent, surrealistic soap opera, was Lynch needed to choose 2 hours of investigating Teresa Banks or give us 2 hours of Laura Palmer. They didn't like the fact that the two stories connected but really didn't connect. Because you could walk in 30 minutes into Fire Walk with Me, miss the entire Teresa Banks thing, and be fine for the rest of the movie. You know,
no connection.
It really didn't connect, and he should have picked one or the other. And then we hear all these stories that he had 2 other films planned, and it's like, are we gonna get now what he had planned for the next 2 films?
Probably not.
Well, what's funny is,
but I always crossed my mind though, Cameron. It crossed my mind. I'm like, are we gonna get now what he wanted to do if they had made? But we don't even know if he had anything scripted or anything.
I feel like there's some George Lucas stuff going on with this, because remember George Lucas was always on the record saying like, oh, there's going to be like another trilogy, and then he's like, no, there's not going to be another trilogy. I've seen
he went back and redacted it. And
I've seen some stories where it's like, the Fire Walk with Me was the first movie.
Yeah. Listen. When Fire Walk with Me came out, there was no talk about 3 films. That came out around 95, 96. That's when that story started.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, at the time, no. But what I'm saying is Lynch was so bothered, I think, that that people just couldn't grasp this idea of 2 stories not touching. That we got it in Lost Highway. We got it in Mulholland Drive. This whole idea of like, we're going to have 2 different stories that are going to barely touch, and I mean, he just,
and I'll make them converge.
Right. Exactly. He just could not let it go. Yeah. And you know,
I think he is stubborn to a point.
Oh yeah.
You can tell he's stubborn.
Oh yeah. Because when he's doing the Charlie Rose interview about Lost Highway, and you know, he's talking about Fire Walk with Me, he's just like, yeah, it didn't go over very well, and but you know, I'm hoping people will take a look at that film again and see, you know. And I'm like, yeah, you're gonna cram that film down our throats until we have to accept it as the basis for season 3. And again, it's like I really like the film, but at the same time, though, listen, this, and Eric, you and I have talked about this before. This made me laugh so much. There's a Film Threat article about Fire Walk with Me, and it says that Lynch and Engels, because this is before the internet, they didn't have a problem with this. They said that they brought in Twin Peaks fans, people who knew the material well, to read the script and give notes about possible continuity errors.
That's bullshit.
Yes.
That has to be bullshit.
Because as I said to you earlier today, Joe, I would have had 10 pages of notes for them.
Yeah, that has to be complete bullshit.
Note number 1: Harold Smith's apartment looks like shit. Where is his flowers? Where is the bookcase where the diary is supposed to be in? You know, why how did his apartment grow 3 times bigger? Right. You know, things like that. Why does it look like it was filmed on a high school gymnasium?
With Donna all becoming a fucking slutty strip queen in a Canadian like brothel, like, you know, Canadian nightclub. Like, that wasn't, you would never hint that in the series.
No, I know what happened. Lynch wanted to kind of have a bubble where he said, this is where it's going to start, this is where it's going to end, I'm going to make it up as I go along. The problem is, and this is what really bothers me, is that him and Frost had already created a timeline in season 1, right? Forget about what he thinks about season 2. Season 1, they created a timeline. So the day she dies, she's giving English lessons to Josie Packard. Okay.
Right.
Here is, to me, what I always thought would be one of the premier scenes you have in the movie. You want to have Joan Chen and Firewalk with me? Great. This is how you do it. You have Laura show up to tutor her in English. And while Laura's tutoring in English, Laura's looking at her because she senses, she's probably going to die soon or something like that, and can see through Josie's facade and be like, you're just like me. You're hiding who you really are.
Well, that's a great notion. I mean, that's a...
Right. And that's a scene that would not have been able to be cut. How about Laura, instead of Laura having visions of blue light flickering in her room and going, the same ring, why don't we have her going to bed and having the dream of her and Cooper from her point of view? Because she writes in that diary entry that Donna reads to Cooper, tonight is the night that I die. I just had this dream.
She should have had the same dream as Cooper.
Yes.
It should have been, and that's how it should have been connected.
Right.
I have a feeling, though, they might fix some of those errors in the new show because it's 25 years later. Mm-hmm. In Cooper's dream, he's 25 years older. They should have did it in Firewalk. Maybe now we'll get that.
Right.
I mean, I hope we do.
I actually think it's funny that the old man makeup they gave him in 1990 makes him look older than he is in fact now.
I know.
Which I actually think that's sort of funny.
Well,
and he's going to be almost 60 years old. I mean, has to be.
Right. He might be a little older than that, but yeah.
I just think it's funny that Kyle, everybody is kind of come around. They're like, well, that was kind of the peak of my career, and so now they want to come back and do this. Whereas, like, I would have been like, you know what, Kyle, you made Firewalk with Me like really hard to do, and people didn't accept it.
You turned this in a piece of shit.
Well,
and then you went and made Showgirls, so fuck you.
See, that's the Lynch Kyle MacLachlan interview or discussion I want to see. I want to see the truth come out.
Not the revisionist. Oh, you're so great, David. I know, Kyle. I know, Kale. Kale, he calls him. Yeah, I know, Kale. I've always loved you. You've always had my back. Fuck you. You did not.
Yeah, get like an actual interview where they say, like, Kyle, like, what happened with Firewalk with Me? Like, why weren't you in it more? Like, what happened there? And I actually think Kyle MacLachlan is kind of a straightforward enough guy. I think he'd probably be honest about it now. I mean, it's 25 years later. What does he care?
He hasn't, though. He hasn't. He said it 10, 15 years ago. He did say that he didn't want to get stereotyped. He didn't want to, and I understand, but now it's all peaches and cream. It's almost 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And he's not doing much now, so, I mean, they're not going to make the Flintstones fourth,
No. But the thing is, though, when I was talking with Michael Horst, when they announced the series, I did an interview with Michael Horst about it, and I said to him, God, it's going to be great to see Kyle MacLachlan be a man again, because
we've talked about this.
Seriously, I mean, like, listen, I like him in Sex and the City, but he was the impotent, like, stupid ass husband of Charlotte. And
Can
then
I bring up two examples, Cameron?
Okay.
So my girlfriend Amber, who is asleep now and a couple rooms over, she goes, oh my God, isn't that the guy who couldn't get it up in Sex and the City?
Right.
When I showed her Twin Peaks.
Right.
And then today, her sister goes, my ex-fiance was obsessed with that fucking Twin Peaks. Do you want me to come to your Twin Peaks viewing party as the guy from Wisteria Lane?
Right.
And
Desperate Housewives.
I don't want Kyle MacLachlan meant as that guy.
Right.
I don't.
So in Desperate Housewives, he played, the husband. I can't remember the woman, but he was in a wheelchair, and he was just basically shat on through the whole series. And
right.
And it's just like, I remember just sitting there going, Kyle, Agent Cooper was like my hero, the guy I aspired to be. And now he's just this guy that, like, women just mentally abuse in all these shows and stuff.
Yeah. Impotent guy in a wheelchair.
His role in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was really good. I actually think
that was
he saved that.
But he's good at Portlandia too. He was good at Portlandia.
Sure. I'm just saying that the thing is with Kyle MacLachlan, and I know this is probably sacrilegious to say, is when he's in the right role,
yes,
he's amazing. When he is miscast, he's a bad actor.
But more often than not, it was because of David Lynch, right?
Well, it's kind of like the Johnny Hughes, Molly Ringwald school, right?
Right. And there's a lot of, I mean, there's the, Robert De Niro, Harvey Keitel with Martin Scorsese. There's a lot of those.
Yeah, but those guys are good in other movies too. I mean, but it's like Molly Ringwald, when she was with John Hughes, was gold. Then she struck out with Fresh Horses, and it was all downhill after that.
I can't think of too many other movies where De Niro was as good as he was without Scorsese. Maybe The Deer Hunter.
Come on.
Well,
really?
I love him in Meet the Parents and those comedies, but I'm saying
no.
Earlier in his career.
The Untouchables?
Oh, I like The Untouchables. I do. I loved it when I was younger. I've recently rewatched it, but
Once Upon a Time in America?
It's another one, but he was almost typecasted in that gangster kind of role.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm forgetting obviously The Godfather 2 by Coppola, but
yeah,
he was typecasted in that kind of role.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, but I also, his first big movie was Mean Streets. That's my favorite Scorsese movie. I love Mean Streets.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like Mean Streets?
Joey, you seem like a character from Mean Streets.
I am. I'm Johnny Boy.
I can see you in a pool hall just beating someone down with a cube.
I love you, Kim. But I remember him up on the table with the pool cue, and
Yeah. Some William TQPQ writes Ray Wise killed in Reaper. Yes, he did. That was a great show.
That was a good show.
Yeah.
I'll be right back because I don't want to urinate on camera again.
Thank you.
I've gotten a lot of fan mail because of that and Cam.
Okay, great. So I was gonna say while we're waiting for him to finish that, so Alternative Nation published an article today saying Twin Peaks and David Lynch reveal what it's going to take for season 4 to happen. And they basically are saying the same stuff. If people like it and there's good ratings, we may come back. So, do we want them to come back is what I'm saying. Do we want season 4, season 5, season 6 of Twin Peaks? Or do we just want this great season and then get out?
I feel like they're saying that because they don't want to give away. This is just my guess. I don't know this, of course. I feel like they're saying that merely because if they say, well, this season has an ending, then it gives away something of a story point, So I think they're just kind of leaving it open-ended like that.
Yeah, because I can't see it coming back. It's called The Final Dossier, the book. I mean, come on.
Right. So I think they're just saying that purely to kind of avoid addressing the content of the season.
Yeah. Joe, what do you think? Do you think David Lynch and Kyle MacLachlan did a talk today with Hollywood Reporter that Alternative Nation reported on, saying that there could be a season 4 if the viewers are there and you know what? Honestly, I have a feeling like they're saying that too. Eric was saying like they don't want to reveal they have an end point, but I also think that they don't want people just to start. They don't want people to start canceling their Showtime orders like immediately after the show is over, which is going to happen.
No, and they don't. We haven't even began till 3 days from now. I mean, now it's going to be 3 days away, but they don't want people to just think, oh, well, why should I watch this? Because it's just going to end anyway. New viewers, if anything. I mean, because some people are going in, not like us and not like most people, but people will be going into this as new viewers or people that knew of Twin Peaks when it first was around.
Right.
I have a lot of people at work, that hear me talking about it that only watched like the pilot episode and then tuned out back in the day. And I don't think they want to leave the door open, obviously. And I mean, if it's a massive success, I mean, if you have people, I have a feeling that if it's good, we're going to have people talking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks after the first few episodes. And that's when the buzz will start to generate, because just like Stranger Things and all these shows now, they're subscription based now. Showtime has a subscription based thing, just like Netflix and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if the demand is there, Showtime, if they make a ton of money off of this, they're going to say, well, can we get like 6 more, 8 more? I mean, but if they end it the way that he doesn't want to continue, I mean, how can you do it? I don't know. It's kind of a double-edged
Well, that's
sword.
like, someone say, hey, do you mind doing an 8-episode thing of Blue Velvet? I mean, it's just like, if they don't have the story for it, they can't move forward,
Right.
Unless we get.
And this took them 5 years or so to make.
I mean, unless we get the Little Nicky Chronicles, I'm all for it.
I would love another season. I would love it to keep going if it's great.
I want to find out that James got Evelyn pregnant, and so we see their child just making it in the world, seeking out his dad.
That would be amazing. Direwolf says, not to be negative, but I don't see this new show being popular. This is the thing. Again, I've talked about this ad nauseum, I know, but really? I think that it's going to be a huge success for the first night.
They were on Good Morning America.
No, I understand, and so was season 1.
Just to watch it, and I was hungover as shit. And I woke up to watch it.
Happy Wednesday.
And, thank you. They were on there for like 5 minutes, and I was like, oh God, Twin Peaks people are on Good Morning America. It's coming back slowly into the subconscious.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that, look, if you go by season 1 to season 2, I understand there was months in between, all that stuff. People were dropped off before episode 16 of season 2 aired. We're getting 18 episodes. Game of Thrones season 7 also drops this summer as well. Listen, I understand it's cable. You can watch what you want to watch and bounce back and forth. But if this show doesn't hook people, and I'm not talking about the fans, I'm talking about general audiences, and they look, of course they want subscriptions, of course they want this, but what they really want is media attention. They want to see that. They want to see it, highlighted on Twitter, right? Right. Now, I'm saying that I think by episode 4, episode 5, 6, 7, you're not gonna, unless it's just amazing, you are gonna see it drop off. By the time it gets to episode 18, it'll probably be like season 2 finale, where only the hardcore fans were left. And I know that's
what's a long summer, it's
right?
Going all the
and I understand a lot of people are like, "Well, screw them. Who cares? We don't need them. We're fans. That's what matters." I'm just saying that I think we're gonna get a replay of the entire experience of season 1 and 2 over one summer, because people don't have
that would be intense.
I mean, if it all dropped if it dropped all at once, like on Netflix, which is something Lynch doesn't want, you're not going to lose your audience. But
that's right. It might be better off to do that, actually.
But week by week by week, which is, listen, this is the way Twin Peaks was meant to be seen, which was you see it, and then you think about it for 6 days. You live in that world, and you talk it over with a bunch of people, and then you rewatch, and then you watch the next episode. Right. As we've gotten used to the binge watching all the time.
Nowadays, it's not like that.
No. And so this will be interesting.
Shorter attention spans.
Yes. And let's just say, for instance, what if the first 4 or 5 episodes make no logical sense whatsoever? What if it's all Inland Empire? And then episode 14, 15 ties it all together. Well, by that time, the audience is gone.
Which is a good possibility.
I just don't. I'm sorry. Like, this is where I always have to bring in the Mark Frost influence. Right. I just don't see Mark Frost being involved and that happening. I could be wrong. Again, we could all be wrong on that, but it's just I feel like Mark Frost has a good instinct for story and for.
Well, he used to. I mean, what is Mark made in a while though, Eric? You know what I mean?
I mean, I think
Mark
he's
hasn't made a TV show in
he's
a long
been
time.
A novelist primarily.
That's true.
Actually,
God, didn't he like co-write like Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer?
Both of the original ones.
Oh God!
But he also wrote The Greatest Game Ever Played, the golf movie that was directed by Bill Paxton. And what's great is if you get the Blu-ray, there's a commentary with Mark Frost and Bill Paxton together.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh,
so
wow.
And it's only like $7 on Amazon. Pick it up.
Well, anyway, when we keep referring to Inland Empire, and it's like, yeah, but those were pure Lynch. You can make the case maybe Frost hasn't done anything significant in a while, but him and Lynch together, I think that's the oddball. I think you have to allow that he is a steadying influence on some kind of like narrative direction here. I hope.
No, totally. I'm just saying, and they work so well together. They're very balanced together. I like them a lot. But again, at their best, you get Twin Peaks. At their worst, you get On the Air. I don't know. I mean, like, it's just
that's true.
Or what was that Fox show they did? I can't even remember what it was. It was some like true crime show that they did. It only lasted like one episode.
I don't even know.
And then Lynch and Barry Gifford went off to do Hotel Room and all that, and Lost Highway and all that. So
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, listen,
I don't know what we're gonna expect,
No.
Cameron. I mean, this is unprecedented in the fact that this show is coming back for a third season after this long.
But I guess to just kind of bring it full circle, though, is, and again, I know these feelings are gonna alter tomorrow and Friday. Like I said, I knew this week was going to be like this. Well, right now, today is like this. I just,
well, today's hump day. We're hump day.
Yes, but instead of going up, I'm down here. I don't like being at work and getting messages and seeing articles saying, David Lynch completely just threw all the hard work of season 2 under the bus. That to deny the fact that he had script approval, director approval for every scene.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my perspective too. That's why I kind of take offense at it.
And now he's like, you know what? Season 2 wasn't my fault. It was everybody else's fault. And I'm just like, really? You're not going to take any blame for it. No, I was busy doing Wild at Heart. No, you weren't, dude. You weren't. I remember. I know the timeline. Don't lie to the original fans. But nobody online. I mean, even people in the comments section, Joe, on your page, it's just mistruths. There's been this thing of like, if we just keep repeating the same lies over and over again, it's, listen, you guys mentioned John Thorne. He's the one that came up with that theory that Deer Meadow was all a dream.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm just like, that's, no offense. I mean, I like the guy a lot, but that's the biggest bunch of horse shit I've ever heard in my life. Because if you read the script, it's not a dream. If you watch the movie, it's not a dream. So are we trying to say like, well, we didn't like the whole first half hour, so we're just going to excuse it by saying that's Cooper's dream? Come on. It doesn't, no. And there's no interpretation about it. Fire Walk With Me is one of the least movies you need to interpret for. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's
well, I don't know.
Well, to a point.
But for the most part, it's a story about a girl being molested and killed by her dad. I mean, it's simple. It's a simple story.
Except for but it's almost trying to possess her, and I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's because the series. If you just watch the movie by itself and not know that, it just looks like that Bob is the evil that men do, that type of thing. So,
well, if a newcomer watches that, they wouldn't know any of that stuff. The Red Room, it would just freak them out. And
see, and that's largely my criticism of Fire Walk With Me is that it can't it makes no sense without the series. To me, and again, I'm a big fan of movie crossovers and those kinds of things, but a movie should make beginning to end, someone should be able to watch a movie and be able to understand basically the narrative. Who are the characters, what's happening. There are things that happen in Fire Walk With Me that if you didn't see the series, you have no idea what's going on. Like, who the hell is the one-armed man? Like he just appears and is like running around yelling things about cream corn.
Right.
And that's just one example. And so
that was a lot of
that's my chief
consensus about the movie. The critics were like, if I wasn't a newcomer, I couldn't watch this if it wasn't for the show.
Right.
What is going on here? The midget, if you didn't see the show, you wouldn't know what Michael J. Anderson was doing.
Right.
I mean, Annie, that stuff was left out of the movie, but
and this is why
Annie shows up in Laura's bed, and I mean, you're watching this movie, like, why is this girl showing up in her bed?
Well, just think, it could have been worse, man. It could have been worse because the first scene was Cooper in Laura's bed, and they had sex.
Oh, I forgot about that.
That actually might have made more sense.
He's sitting in Cooper's lap in the end, and he's not putting his...
In the script, Laura's straddling Cooper in the Black Lodge as the last scene, not him holding her shoulder.
Could have been kind of cool though.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I completely just spaced what I was going to say. But yeah, you know, let's see.
It's funny because I've been feeling so optimistic about this show till today.
That's the thing. I'm so.
And now.
No, because someone.
Is it just me?
Yeah, no, because someone in the comments was just like, "You guys are really making me worry." You know, Dirk sent me a text going, "I'm getting really nervous, and I don't know about this, I don't know about that." Yeah. And I sent him the picture of Naomi Watts in Mulholland Drive saying, "Now you got me scared." Because
I'm surprised he hasn't texted me.
Well, you know, it's just like, listen, I am not a pessimistic person. I can't wait to see this new thing, but now I'm getting the nervous jitters, mostly because of these self-imposed things that Lynch is doing himself. Like if he just kept tight-lipped about all this stuff, I would be still on cloud nine. But because all these articles are dropping, and it's basically like, hey, you know that thing you know and love? Yeah, I think that was shit, and I'm gonna now do it this way. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you think that was shit? And you made Fire Walk with Me, which the whole world thought was shit.
Or On the Air, or like Hotel Room, or like there's a lot of stuff.
And I love Lynch, and like I said, I will defend him through and through, but he's not someone who has the pulse on what people want to see.
Well, no, because to him, and I actually really respect this about him, David Lynch, he says it in this interview, he said it in many other interviews, it's like the work is the work. You have an idea, you go and execute the idea, and you know, you do the best you can, and then once it hits, either it resonates with them or they don't like it. I actually do respect that perspective. I really do.
He's a classic artist. He's a classic artist. He doesn't care. If you like it and they love it, then great.
Yeah.
He said that in the new interview. He said if people love it and they want another season, then great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he doesn't really care if you.
But that's the thing, and I'm just saying that when you go and you make things like a Twin Peaks movie or a Twin Peaks series, and you know it has that rabid fan base, right? I remember 15 years ago seeing a talk that Lynch did, I believe was it Stanford or no, UC Berkeley. And a kid got up there and said, "I'm a big fan of Twin Peaks. Are we ever going to see Agent Cooper again?" And Lynch just said, "Next question."
Oh, yeah.
Right? It was just like...
No, I remember seeing that.
Right.
He cut him right off. I mean, it was like...
Right. And so you have this rabid fan base. I want to make sure, because like when Robert Knepper's in this preview saying every gift or every episode is a gift to the fans. Okay. Last time I heard that was Spielberg saying that about Crystal Skull before he dropped that on us.
Heard about that for the Phantom Menace too.
Right. And you even said that to me today. It's like, Cameron, don't bring Phantom Menace into this. and you know, and that's the thing is like, we don't, I mean, it could be a success or this could just bring it more down, you know, and like,
also,
and Joel was saying, go ahead.
What about the head of Showtime like programming, Levine? Mm-hmm. He said he's seen it, right. and if I remember correctly, he made a comment like it evokes classic Twin Peaks. Now he could just be saying that.
What else is he gonna say?
Well, right, but I mean,
yeah, but he also said it's totally different, like anything we've ever seen too.
I feel like
I've seen him say both things.
I just feel like if it was something like completely unlike it, he could have been like, "Oh, it's like a bold new vision," or so. You know, there's a way of saying it that doesn't demean it or go like, "Oh crap, you guys."
Think about how many new characters are in it. Jim Belushi, like, is doing the press rounds. Like, well, you know, he's on Good Morning America, sitting next to Dana Ashbrook, Kimmy Robertson, and Kyle MacLachlan. You expect like Major Namick to be there or something? No, it's Jim Belushi.
Yeah, but notice how like in this New York Times article we see you know, Sherilyn Fenn and Grace Zabriskie, but we haven't seen Sherilyn Fenn, we haven't seen Cheryl Lee in any of the press materials besides the pictures.
No, just pictures. Yeah.
Well, they could be some of the cast like we talked about earlier. They're not allowed to do press until after the show.
If you read Sherilyn Fenn's tweets, I can see why they wouldn't let her do press.
She's insane. She's insane.
God. she watches some of this stuff. Do we need to gaslight her?
She's recovering. No. She's recovering.
No, listen. Something. I adore her, but look, she does definitely put herself out there on Twitter, which God bless her. But I'm just saying that when you put yourself out there, like I put myself out there doing these podcasts, there are two ways of
talk to her on Facebook, on Messenger, like when she started getting involved with the page and stuff. She said some like stuff, and I'm like, oh, am I talking to you or like a character that you're playing? Like I was like, hi, how are you? And she was like, oh, I'm feeling like Sandy the Fish Girl from Just One of the Guys. and I'm like, I had to think. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember you were in that. Young kid that I remember like thinking you were cute. And she's like, yeah, rad. And I'm like, oh, okay.
That's all right.
Who am I speaking to?
Well, she called out James on Twitter personally.
I remember that.
A douche waffle or something?
No. That was the guy who runs the Twin Peaks Festival. He called James a douche waffle.
Oh yeah, which is still, I mean, that's a great word.
No, James got freaked out because he got on Twitter and Sherilyn Fenn's like, James Woolley.
Like, how are you talking about things you don't know anything about?
Yeah.
God bless James.
And I remember getting all these messages from people who watch the podcast going, oh my God, what did James do? Sherilyn Fenn's yelling at him on Twitter.
Right. Well, I remember doing a podcast after that.
Oh my Lord. Yeah, I agree with JB. I agree with JB. Like he writes, they can't risk putting Sherilyn Fenn on live TV.
No, she's unpredictable. She's like a time bomb. Well, the way she talked to me, it's like she was talking in character. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, nice to talk.
I mean, what if, again, let's try and see the bright side here. What if she's paralyzed? What if Audrey's like in a wheelchair? And it's the kind of thing they don't want any clue that when we see, or hell, she's like missing an arm or something. Like,
I didn't even think of that. That's
literally, they don't want to give you any clue as to the state of Audrey. Again, she's in it by this.
If Audrey,
we got one clue in the secret history of Twin Peaks that she survived.
Right, but
if that can be believed.
But if Audrey is in a box with no arms and no legs, yes, let's do it.
That's kind of what I was alluding to. But I actually do mean it legitimately. Like maybe she's deformed from the explosion somehow.
How could she not be?
I'm all for it.
That's like a classic Lynch thing. Like there's always someone kind of like with a handicap or like a speaking disorder. There's always some element of that.
Right. Leonard says, forget about Inland Empire. It's going to be an 18-hour crazy clown time music video.
Oh, God.
And Snug Dream says this about Sherilyn Fenn, which I agree. She's an incredible actress. Her scenes in Twin Peaks are some of the most heartfelt, believable, memorable. Yeah, she is an incredible actress. I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying that she's definitely a very outspoken, opinionated person on Twitter. And that's not necessarily who Showtime wants to put on Good Morning America right now.
And she may or may not be on meds for manic depression, bipolar.
Okay.
All right, Joe.
Methadone, something.
Joe, let's try to bring it back to like some sort of stable conversation.
That's what I got, and that's what's his name used to say, Eric, and people, that she's a little, It's okay. Waking up the missus.
Yeah. I'm just trying to look over my notes here.
I'm in that doghouse again.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Yeah, this one's running long. I'm gonna end up in the doghouse myself too.
That's
I'm in that doghouse again.
Oh yeah, someone else said. I think it was somebody on the page. Let me just see here. Let's see if it.
Well, while you're looking at that, Family Guy 10 asked about the lack of Cheryl Lee, and I think with her it's the same thing. Like, if I'm trying to see the positive side to this, like I think there are some, because again, both of the two characters that Cheryl Lee portrayed are dead, and so I think there's some imagining that we're going to see her in just the, in the Black Lodge and the Red Room. But I just don't think they want her out doing any press, saying anything, just based on the stuff that they've already told us.
No,
and
I
some of the
believe
stuff I've read.
I believe what me and Cam have been saying for a while now, that she's going to be resurrected in some form, either living or there's a plot twist that she's going to get reunited with her mother, or something is going to happen. And I've been thinking about that for a while. Cameron was touching on it this week, that she may be resurrected at the end of the show.
Well, somebody gave me
very well happen.
And someone gave me a hard time about that too, saying, "Well, how's it going to happen? I mean, she died." And I said, "Yeah, but they could play and say that only her bad doppelganger got killed,
right,
and the good one got out."
Well, do you remember last time we were talking? I said that during Fire Walk with Me, when she's looking in the picture and she sees herself, and then from that point on, it changes. The bad Laura is around, and she may have went into the Red Room. The good Laura. How do we know what Lynch is going to do? I mean, something like that.
Especially when she says to James, "Your Laura disappeared."
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
I didn't even think of that, Cam. I didn't even think of that. But ever since I read this article, and then I rewatched The Missing Pieces, the movie, and that kept resonating with me. And then you've been talking about it again, and I said it to James, and James was like, "Oh, I don't think that could be good, but I don't think it's
Animal Life."
I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, that would be a really cool thing to do. Unpredictable.
Yeah. Well, the reason why.
What else can they do? He keeps saying it's going to be about Laura Palmer again. He keeps saying that.
Well, the reason why the reason why I even think about that is because Cooper's trapped in the lodge at the end of Fire Walk with Me, and then we see Laura sitting on the couch in Fire Walk with Me, and she's dead, but at the same time, the Black Lodge can obviously spirits can come in and out of the lodge, and if you can,
she's getting out almost. She's getting out at the end.
And if you can come in, you can leave. The vision I just keep having over and over again, and again, I know I'm wrong, is I think Laura comes home, and I think that Mom wakes up and makes breakfast and says, "Laura, breakfast," and Laura comes down the stairs.
That would be awesome. That would be an awesome way to end it. I mean, that would be the full circle.
And instead of Cooper coming to town, Laura comes down the stairs and Cooper leaves town. End of it. Right. Now that,
or he doesn't come, or he doesn't come at all.
And
he doesn't need to come at all.
Yes, Lynch would never write that, but Lynch with Frost might write that.
Well, because
it's literary.
I mean, maybe it could be. Maybe there's a half measure there, and maybe Sarah Palmer goes into the lodge or something and reunites with her there. I mean, maybe there's a middle ground of that would be the measure they do.
Right.
No, I think it's going to be Cooper somehow.
I don't see an Inland Empire, Mulholland Drive kind of ending. Can't see Cooper, blowing his head off at the end of the season, and that's the end of the show. I don't think that.
I hope not. I really don't.
No, I will turn off the show. I'll be like, no, I'll wait for the Blu-ray release. But I do want to kind of say, listen, I'm not being down on the show. I haven't even seen it, obviously, but I just today, with the way Lynch was talking and all the articles coming out, which again I predicted that everyone was going to start writing articles about it. I just got super nervous as to what are we getting here. And again, it's the calm before the storm. I'm getting a little bit nervous. It's kind of like you get nervous before a big date. But I got to tell you, the way I felt today was like, all week long, I've been like, oh, having a great time, on this date with this wonderful girl. And then today it felt like I opened up her email accidentally and found out she was cheating on me. That's the way it felt.
I like that analogy.
No, because all of a sudden these articles today and Lynch's words, my heart just sank. And I was like, can't we just move on? It's been 25 years later. Why are we still propagating false truths and fake stories and and all that? I mean, hashtag, fake news. It just drove me nuts. And anyway, but I do want to say one thing. There's a girl on the Twin Peaks Worldwide Facebook page that posted a comment today. Her name is Irene Barnett, and she wrote, and I think this is kind of true, and it's a little scary, but she writes, it's disingenuous for Lynch to complain after the fact. If season 3 falls flat, which in my heart would just be aching, Lynch will be wholly responsible. At this point, he cannot get away with blaming Showtime or Mark Frost anymore.
Right.
They gave him carte blanche. If it is terrible, it's all on him.
That's true.
That's right. He directed all 18 hours.
And he co-wrote and directed Fire Walk with Me, and he took the blame for that too. Although now he's like, it's come around, people like it now, this and that. So now I'm,
right.
Believe me, if
he switched sides.
Yes, the doppelganger. I think I think in a way, I want to see this to be, I want this to be Agent Cooper's story. I don't want this to be Agent Cooper as Fred Madison, in season 3.
No, Fred Madison.
Yeah, And the other thing that's weird is that to hear that, David Nevins, I think, said that David Lynch as Gordon Cole is a prominent character.
Yeah. And we've seen him in a bunch of the teasers so far. So.
Yeah. Well, remember, in Fire Walk with Me, he is the first actor we see. Mm-hmm. So Lynch gets a bit of the actor bug when he is doing Twin Peaks now,
Yeah.
And when did he first play Gordon Cole in Twin Peaks? Yes, I know did the audio in season 1, but when did he show up?
Did the audio.
Oh, he showed up in season 2. The horrible season.
That's according right. He didn't show up till season 2 in person, right?
Right. And he's wonderful in that scene, in that series. And anyway, I really hope.
But did you see how in Brad Dukes' book that they said he only wrote in that character so that he could kiss Matron Emick or whatever?
Hmm.
Yeah, but he doesn't do that until much, much later. So, I mean, was that the plan all along?
They said in Brad, remember you were bringing up discrepancies from Brad Dukes' book earlier.
Oh, yeah.
That are now, we didn't hear about this till recently. And they said, all the other people are like, what do you mean? Like, he was like, no, he made us write him in so he could kiss Matron Emick.
Oh,
and then you're
funny.
like, what, was he just being a creep? He wanted to kiss the fucking hot, young 19-year-old girl.
First of all, I think she was like 17 or 18. I'm not even sure she was legal.
And she is aged the best out of all of them. Matron Emick looks amazing.
Some people seem to think that it's Laura's spirit that's in the log, but I don't really think that.
In the what?
In the log lady's log, that it's Laura communicating.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No. No, that's a little.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that Lynch came on as Gordon Cole because he was going to direct episode 14, and so it gave him an excuse to get there a week early and prep his episode.
That's what I thought. I thought.
I mean, that was always my impression. But yeah, I mean, look, we are what are we at? 4 days away now?
3.
Well, you're on the East Coast, but
yeah, where I am, you'll be 3 in like an hour.
Right. So, but right now, still, it's 4 days away. And I think it just would be completely just untrue to just float through life this whole week and then get the new series. I think if we don't chronicle the up and down thought process in our struggle to love it and be worried, then we're not being truthful to you guys on the podcast. And I want this to be, I've always wanted this to be a podcast of real fans talking to each other and not just a bunch of, Lynch ass kissers, which, I mean, we are, but just only be that.
We are, but we're critical too. We're critical.
I mean, I think, yeah,
but we're not
appreciation of art is analysis. It's critique. Yeah. I mean, you don't just, that painting's beautiful. It's like, well, what does it say? What does it do? How do you feel about it?
Right. And, I just feel like, I just feel like we're not someone who's just like, yeah, the thing sucks. I mean, it's just that the thing is, though, is that Lynch is somebody who is, people have always described him. He's just someone who thinks in images and pictures and goes where his gut takes him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his gut taking him working with Bob Ingalls in Fire Walk with Me took Fire Walk with Me in whole different areas than it would have been if Frost and Lynch wrote it. But it also,
well, Frost said that.
Right.
Frost has said that.
Right.
He doesn't think linear. He doesn't think in logical terms.
So what he needs is a very solid script for him to always come back to and spring off from with his ideas, but be able to come back to. But he can do it. I mean, Blue Velvet is an incredibly, amazingly well-written film.
Of course it is.
Right. But that's not, and I could even say Wild at Heart is a very well-written film. If you read the screenplay to Wild at Heart, it's very different than the movie.
Yeah. It should have been better than it was.
What?
Wild at Heart.
You don't like it?
Oh, no, I do. I just, when you watch it, I loved it. And when you watch it now, it's a little dated, certain things. But I've always loved Nicolas Cage. So it's
I don't really find it. You know why you might think it's dated is because, True Romance came out a few years later. And
of course, California Cage.
Yeah, so it kind of blends in with that, but Natural Born Killers and then
at the time, you were a little older than me
right.
at the time, so
you
got the gist of it, yeah. Whereas I was like, okay,
right. But the Lynch film that I feel is dated, and I do really like it, but the movie I think is incredibly dated is Lost Highway. That movie just reeks of because of the music. It's because of the music.
The soundtrack. Right. The soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still good though.
No, I'm not complaining about it. I'm just saying that you can tell the year it's made.
I hadn't seen it in forever, and then I watched it with my roommates when I was living with my roommates 3 or 4 years ago, and we watched it, and they had never seen it, and they were like, "This fucking film is really good." They were like, "This is really makes you think and And I'm like, yeah, it does, but it is dated. You're right, because of the music, the Bowie, the Maynard, but I love, did Henry Rollins was in it.
Yeah.
So
I'm not again.
He's another one though. He's a Lynch apologist, but I love him. I love the punk scene,
right.
But I'm surprised he wasn't involved in the new Twin Peaks. I was very surprised.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, I really, really like Lost Highway. I saw it several times in the theater, but it's not the timeless Lynch film that other of his films are.
No. Eraserhead is timeless.
Oh yeah, it's the black and white and the industrial land.
It's not in and it's not in any time zone. Twin Peaks is like that. Twin Peaks is.
I would say Blue Velvet as well.
Yeah, Blue Velvet is, but I don't know about. No, I guess you could say Mulholland Drive can't.
Yeah, I definitely think Wild at Heart is. You may say it's dated, but it's so many different things that.
Well, a lot of genres going on,
right?
And the Elvis thing,
but even the Straight Story is timeless. That could be 1980 or 2000 or it's.
I was watching. It was on Showtime the other day. They have all the Lynch movies streaming on Showtime.
Mm-hmm.
That was on broadcast. On
what's funny is that as much as you love Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks and all that stuff, when you see the Straight Story, you almost think this could be his best movie.
Yeah, because it wasn't him being Lynch. It was just him being a director.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's a movie where Lynch's emotional filmmaking style, I think, really is at its most powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That's a story where kind of having your emotions on your sleeve and just directing with straight out of the heart.
Right.
That's where that plays.
And
that plays
fact,
well.
Rather than the avant-garde
right.
and the surrealism.
He
could be that guy.
And when I asked Jennifer Lynch about it, because I already knew the answer that I was probably going to get, but I wanted to ask her just as a confirmation, and she confirmed it. I said, David Lynch directing The Straight Story, that's who your dad really is, not the guy who's making Lost Highway and Inland Empire. And she said, no, that is who he is. It's just he decides to make these other movies. But
Yeah.
The Straight Story is when you hear about Lynch growing up as a kid in the Midwest, that is where the Straight Story came from.
Montana, Idaho. I mean, he was that guy. He was the hick from French Lick.
When you watch the Straight Story, it's not somebody directing it from the outside looking in. It's somebody who knows that area. I mean, it feels very lived in. And the thing is, though, and I talked about this a few days ago, but what's amazing is, okay, you have the guilt in Wild at Heart of Sailor Ripley knowing that he was there the night that Lula's dad died. You have the guilt in Lost Highway of Fred Madison knowing he killed his wife. Mulholland Drive, obviously the guilt with Diane and all that. But in the Straight Story, it's not explicit, but he tells the young girl who's pregnant that somebody was watching my daughter Rose's kids, and there was a fire, and one of them got burned, and they took the kids away from my daughter. And it's a very poignant scene. But then we realize, as the film goes on, that Alvin is a recovering alcoholic. And it's implied that Alvin was drunk, not watching the kids, and they got hurt. And it's him that got the kids accidentally taken away from his daughter, which is why I think is so loyal to Rose, his daughter.
Which is a very common thing that happens to people, stuff like that.
Right. But what I'm saying, though, is that film, The Straight Story, when you see that movie and you know that Freddie Francis is doing the cinematography, of course, did Elephant Man and Dune, and Jack Fisk is doing the production design, who, of course, was Lynch's best friend, who married to Sissy Spacek, who gave him money to help do Eraserhead. You feel in The Straight Story that it's a bunch of friends getting together and realizing they're getting old.
Yeah, that's good. I was just going to say that.
You know what I mean?
It's true.
I mean, that entire movie just reeks of sadness and wishing they were young again.
I still find that funny that Sissy Spacek gave money to Eraserhead.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is when you see The Straight Story, it's like you can't believe the power of some of those scenes. And all it is the guy on a John Deere lawnmower going across the country.
I know.
But it's like you can see that Lynch at his best doesn't have to be weird, you know? He can, as long as he can find the truth in the scene,
right,
he's gonna hit a home run. And I hope that, listen, Joel scared me to death yesterday by telling me that he's heard, and I sure hope to God this isn't true, that these new episodes can be watched in any order, that they may be standalones.
Oh, I hope
if that is true, no, I don't believe that. How can you do that when it's one movie?
I don't think that makes sense with what we've been told, that this is a movie in 18 parts.
I would be pissed if that happened, personally.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of experimental, and McLaughlin keeps saying that the way he filmed it is unlike anything we've seen before. So then I'm like, oh shit. When I heard that, I'm like, oh shit. So maybe that's what he was talking about. I don't know.
Well, and Joel is somebody who is in the know with a lot of stuff, and I was just like, oh my God, like, what the hell are you talking about? Standalone episodes? Even, I mean, did Showtime just say, hey, can you just make it so we can air these whenever we want to? It's like, oh God, please.
I don't think so.
No, I don't believe it.
Yeah, I doubt that.
I don't believe it. But just hearing that kind of kicked off today, and then seeing all the stuff that was coming out today.
Right. That was the first thing I saw. A couple of things like that. And all these people are posting the interviews with Lynch and McLaughlin. And then I woke up and I watched them on Good Morning America, and Jim Belushi was getting fucking the evil eye from his cast members for spoiling a scene almost.
We talked about that earlier. I think I didn't interpret it that way at all.
No, I know, but when they broke it down after online and people were like framing their faces, I was like, oh my God. Like, they were like, what are you doing?
I need to look at that then, because I watched the video and I just didn't interpret that. But
he's like, we were filming a scene, and it was a party scene at a big party, and they were like, Whoa. Like,
you know what the party was? Welcome back, Laura. I don't know. I mean, you know what? I really don't even care about. I mean, I do, but I mean, Cooper, Laura, all that stuff. I just want to know: is Donna Hayward in this goddamn thing? I mean, what's going on?
I'm with you. I want to know.
We don't even know if she's been recast or.
Yeah.
You've seen every other prominent
character. Those are the little questions that bug me more than Doppelganger Cooper. It's like, little things like that.
Well, we may get a third incarnation of Donna.
That would make a lot of sense.
Why not?
It would be fantastic. But anyway, all right, we're gonna wrap this up. Eric, last thoughts for tonight.
Well, despite the general tenor of this at times, I'm still really excited. I'm even planning on picking up some Chick-fil-A Saturday night and having that.
Ooh, Chick-fil-A.
Oh yeah. I truly, I was, I think I've mentioned this on some podcasts in the back, but I was a huge Lost fan. I went crazy for Lost. I had a whole ritual. My friends would come over, we'd sit down, we'd get Chinese food. We'd always we'd turn out the lights, we'd watch the episodes. I was hardcore about it. I am more excited about this than I was about Lost. And people who hate Lost would probably be like, "Oh yeah, of course." But I'm just trying to give it in context because
Lost
Cameron,
was pretty big. It was big.
Yeah, and Cameron knows my love of Lost, and so I think if I put it in those terms, that I'm more excited for this than I was for Lost. Like, I think that should resonate with you as to how excited I am. And I open this by explaining, my excitement there, and I have to emphasize it again that when I first watched through Twin Peaks and I saw the end, that horrifying shot of Cooper smashing his head in the mirror, and just the thought, I felt like my soul dropped out from under me. This is what I now have to live with. Because again, by that point, it's like, oh my God, this show had been off the air for 16 years, it's never going to come back. But this is it. This is what I'm left with. The fact that it's not, this is transcendent. This is beautiful. I'm so excited. I really am excited. This is going to be, I can't wait to talk about it with you guys. It's going to be just so much fun.
I hope today is just a dip in, a marketing snafu of just people sticking their foots in their mouths and not as a precursor of things to come.
Yeah.
But Joe, last thoughts from you?
I feel the same as Eric. We've talked about this a long time, and that's why I started the page and everything. I've been waiting for this moment for so long, longer than Eric, and just as long as you and James, and and I remember when I started the page, they had just started streaming, Twin Peaks on Netflix again, and I rewatched it, and I'm like, I was so pissed with the ending, and I'm like, this show deserved a better fate. And it should go on, and that's why I started the page. And now I'm just waiting, and I just don't want to be disappointed, but I'm so excited to just see what we get, just because it's been this long, and we've all met each other because of the page and because of this, and it's just a special feeling. So I got my girlfriend's making cherry pie and food, and I'm gonna get donuts, and it's gonna be cool. And I have my friends coming here. That my friends that I've introduced it to over the last 20 years or so are coming over, and we're gonna watch it, and I'm just not gonna let them speak for 2 hours or so.
I've already warned my wife the cell phones are being turned off and we're putting them somewhere else.
No, what you need to do is put all those Leo collars on people so you can just zap them.
No. We don't refer to that storyline, Cameron. That was from the bad part of the season.
Hey, if they don't tell me,
my girlfriend is making the food, and then she has to go to work because she bartends on Sunday nights. So then I'll be here, and she'll make the food, and it's gonna be delicious. But then she'll come back and be like, "I'm so glad I missed all of this because I don't want to hear what you're geeking out about."
I just want. I mean, speaking of Donna Hayward, I just want to know. I don't care if Eric DeRay is not in it or not. I need to know what happened with Leo and the spiders.
Do we have any confirmation that he's in it or not?
No, he's not on the cast list, but that doesn't mean anything.
Whatever happened to him?
I think he just went back to doing, because he was a casting assistant. I think he still does that.
His mother was, what's her name? His mother is
Johanna Ray.
Yeah,
Johanna Ray, the casting director.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, but yeah, I am just filled with I just can't wait. I mean, I say it every night, but it's true. It's like I cannot believe
that it's coming, Cam.
I can't believe that we are here. But I'll say something. If Fire Walk with Me had been like the ending, no, I mean, I don't mean like the Laura Palmer story. I mean, like if they had just followed it forward and ended it, we wouldn't be here today.
Right.
So in a way, and they made those season 2 cliffhangers to try to get a season 3, and it backfired. When in retrospect, they probably should have closed it out. But if they had done that, we wouldn't be here either. I mean, the reason why we're even here is because they kind of screwed up.
They fucked up.
2 times.
They fucked up a lot.
No, I mean, but they screwed up with the finale in terms of the cliffhangers, and they screwed up with Fire Walk with Me in terms of not really giving what the fans wanted at the time.
When you were talking earlier about like, then they canceled it, then they canceled it again. What show can you think that happened to? There's not a lot of shows they did that.
Well, they didn't cancel it,
Star
and
Trek.
they didn't cancel it and then rehire the cast and crew and do the sets again. They had already completed it. They just chose to re-air the episodes because there was, like I said, if it had been today, we would have just gotten a box set with those episodes just on it.
Yeah.
But they had to make up their money somehow. So they.
But it's weird because you can't think of any like modern show that happened to. Right. I can't. That now we're getting another season. I mean, it's really
Arrested Development.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. But that last season was whatever.
Well, the quality wasn't good, but I mean, it's still, they pretty much rebuilt everything and brought everybody back.
I mean, one thing that, again, hindsight's always 2020, and I used to say this a while ago, listen, I love the Earl Annie storyline. That's like one of my favorite things in all of television history. But what would have been really interesting, again, they weren't thinking this way, so I understand. But you know how season 2 could have gone on without losing most of the audience? Because Lynch keeps saying, us solving the Laura Palmer mystery killed the show and that type of thing. No, actually what killed the show was the fact that people seemed a little distant from it for a few episodes before they swung back in. Here's how they could have done it. And I've said this before, but I know there's a lot of new viewers, so I just want to throw this out there. Because sometimes it's not what you do, it's how you do it. If they had solved Laura's murder at episode 16, close it out with Tim Hunter's episode. And then when we came back from the next episode, the next chunk, I mean, from episode 17 to episode 22, if that had been Fire Walk with Me, if all of a sudden we came back and we got the Laura Palmer backstory, now that we know who the killer is, now we're going to see the last month of her life dealing with all the characters we've seen, and then ended the show with her death. Wow. You wouldn't have lost too many people on that road. In fact, you would have gained people wanting to come back and see Cheryl Lee reprise that. And you would have had enough time to deal with the characters properly and have her deal with everybody, as opposed to just Bobby, James, and Donna and her parents. Right? I mean, he took Fire Walk with Me and distilled it down to basically the core people around her.
Yeah, 4 or 5 people.
Whereas in the show, she knew the town.
Yeah.
And I think that if they had done that, again, they weren't even thinking that way. And I wasn't even thinking that way back then. But looking back, if they had done that, they would have gained so many viewers coming in. And then imagine the show, episode 22, it ends with Laura dying, and she's in the red room with Cooper and the angel. The most epic ending of all time.
But at the time, it was that they wouldn't have thought of that.
No, they didn't.
They couldn't have. The creators or the network or the view. I mean, it was. now we're thinking of it, like you said, in hindsight.
Right.
So
yeah. Your idea actually would play really well right now, because you think of shows like
awesome.
Fargo.
It'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you think of Fargo, like each season is sort of a story unto itself, but all still taking place in the same world. But like
Even
seasons
like
1 and 2.
Breaking Bad was too. Breaking Bad, Boardwalk Empire, certain shows they were
Well,
like
right,
that
but
too.
what I mean is specifically like Cameron's idea is like where it's kind of the season is sort of like a closed story to some sense. Like
Right.
Fargo season 1 was like
Right.
not present day, but like in the 2000s, whereas Fargo season 2 went back into the history of one of the characters. So like when as Cameron was explaining a story to me, I actually found myself thinking like, wow, that's almost exactly what that would have been like. And I
But
again,
back then, they didn't think
But it
of
would
it.
but it wouldn't have been a separate season. It would have been midway.
Right. But ABC
Instead of it saying,
primetime in 1991 didn't think.
but
like
instead of
that.
saying 3 days later, if it had said 2 months earlier, and then it begins with Laura Palmer walking down the street, Donna, and Larry Flynn Boyle coming out of the house. Oh my God.
Well, that would have been cool. That would have been, yeah.
Yeah, and it would have maybe brought Lynch back to the show. So anyway, on that note, we're gonna end this. But thank you guys. We've gone almost 3 hours tonight. We gave super duper big episode. I've kept these guys away from their wives and their girlfriends. So my wife is asleep in the other room. So anyway, I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to like these videos and share them and subscribe and all that good stuff. And we are 4 days away. I keep forgetting, but
3
you're,
as of my time.
Yeah, you're on the East Coast.
3 days and 11 hours.
Wow. Yeah, I'm still at 4 days. So, and Eric, you're still at 4 days because you're on the West Coast time with me. But anyway, guys, all right. I'm tired as all hell, but it is so much fun talking Twin Peaks with all of you guys. I've been doing this almost all week long, like like every day is doing the countdown. I know I keep saying commentaries, but I don't know when we get to them, hopefully soon. But it's just a lot of fun having different people on every night and talking Twin Peaks. So anyway, thank you guys again. We will see you next time. Have a good night.
Good night.
Hang loose, Howies.